Hello, and welcome back to House of R. I'm Joanna Robinson. That's Mallory Rubin. And we're here today to talk to you about Lanterns, Season 1, Episode 2, Trustfall.
Yes.
Mallory.
Joanna.
We're back from Baltimore.
In the name of Tom Osborne or whoever it is you worship. What a wonderful few days we've had. Delightful to be back here with you at the crack of dawn.
Crack of dawn.
This podcast.
And we're mere hours away from our midnight screening of essentially of Labyrinth.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a full day for us.
A lot of caffeine ahead of us.
Yes.
Probably a couple Advil for me at least. I don't know about you.
So let's get into this slightly unhinged podcast.
Can't wait.
Right after this. Quick programming reminders.
Yes.
It's Monday when you're listening and watching this, unless something has gone dramatically wrong in the edit, which I'm sure it won't.
Jeez.
And so in general, I just want to put that caveat out there in case.
Yeah, who knows?
Knock on wood. There's a lot of people here today.
You think the fantasy guys are just going to pop into the edit bay and take over?
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe.
the Heifetz cut?
Could be.
Honestly, it would
What
be
about
great.
the Danny Kelly cut?
The DK cut would be
elite.
Just incredible.
The fantasy football guys are here. The watch is here today. There's a lot going on here
Full
at
house.
Sycamore.
Yeah.
But we're here today to talk to you about Lanterns, as we will hopefully every Monday going forward. That's is the
right.
plan. Oppenheimer.
Yes.
Again, unless something goes dramatically wrong tomorrow, Oppenheimer will be coming out later this week. So
yes,
that is very exciting. Sean Fennessy is here to wrap up our Nolan rewatch project.
Thrilling.
And then Buffy season 5 parts 1 and 2 are on the horizon. We got a lot at the. Thank you, Baltimore. Thank you, everyone on the Eastern Seaboard.
That's right.
Thank you to folks from Florida and all over the place who came.
Florida was wild. Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit. To throw out the first pitch at the Orioles-Yankees game. Don't worry about the score. Doesn't matter. But Mallory threw out the pitch. It was amazing.
We did House of R live. It was House of R night at Camden Yards, and it was honestly just a life highlight. It was wonderful.
It was incredible.
The Bad Babies rule. Thank you to the O's for hosting us.
There were hundreds of listeners there. We tried to talk to as many of them as we could.
Yes.
We did not see a lick of the game because we were just a meeting and a greeting.
Yeah.
But everyone was so lovely. But there was a lot of Buffy enthusiasm.
There are a few
among
Spike
that crowd.
shirts,
yeah,
which was great to see.
Yeah.
Delightful. A lot of Bad Babies in their custom Bad Baby and House of R merch. Also a thrill.
And who would you say won the Apple Wars?
I would say that as usual, Team Green feels more compelled to express support because they know how badly Team Green needs it.
Sure.
So.
Green Apple after Green Apple enthusiast greeted us in Baltimore, and that's just a fact.
It's true.
So thank you to everyone. Thank you to our entire team who came out with us.
House of R squad, Ringer squad, Spotify squad. What would we do without Elizabeth Fearman? You ever think about it?
I cry when I think about it. Elizabeth, astonishing.
Elizabeth Tessa, the best.
Who organizes the whole thing and then also boots on the ground is taking every single photo with our listeners. You know what I mean? Just doing everything.
Arjuna, Carlos, Jomi were there.
Carlos had to miss the whole
time.
game because he was editing the podcast.
Jordan from Spotify was there. And then for the O's, Patrick. Incredible.
Yeah,
you got to meet Eve and
Sarah.
Kevin Brown. Sarah. Kevin Brown crashed the live event. That was wonderful. Voice of the Orioles.
And Danny Heifetz was there.
Heifetz was, I would say, inextricable from the experience, which was one of the most memorable days of my life.
Danny Heifetz was giving us mother bear energy, and it was
really
just incredibly sweet and kind. Mallory Rubin, how are you feeling about
genuinely
after this Baltimore event?
Genuinely, it was a life highlight. It was it was an incredible experience.
I was so proud of you. I cried.
There were some glistening eyes. Yeah, it was lovely. I was very much in a state of until the last second, is this real? Is this happening? Is this legit?
Is this a big prank?
And I was very stressed for various reasons heading into it. And then the day itself was just euphoric. Just a joy to be there with you, to get to bring you and our House of R family home. You got to meet my family. You got to meet so many of my best buds who were there. You got to see part of my hometown. And you got to go to Camden, one of the genuine sacred temples and spaces, not only in baseball and in sports, but in my life, certainly.
Beautiful field.
Wonderful.
Gorgeous.
And to be there, to get to do the live show, to get to do House of R at the warehouse before the game, and then to get to go down on the field, and we got to take a bunch of photos. The O's gave us custom jerseys.
That was insane.
Incredible. And I got a pair of the City Connects.
Yeah.
Which I had missed the drop for. I tried for the drop, but I didn't get it.
That was just such a perfect gift for you. You were just sort of wow, you guys know me. You guys really know me.
I felt seen, known, and understood. Thank you, Patrick. And the Bad Babies were just, as always, a delight during the pod itself. That was so fun and wonderful. To go down and do the pitch, just incredible. It was really cool and great and fun. And then we got to hang with the Bad Babies in the Pure Wager Pavilion out in center field for the whole game. And it was just like a delight. It was really surreal and wonderful. And I'm thrilled that we got to do it. And I hope that we're invited back in 2027, 2028, 2029.
Yeah, we would like
frankly,
to make
as long
this-
as we're making House of R.
We would like to make this an annual event.
Let's just throw this out there to the Baltimore Orioles, Patrick, if you're listening. We heard from a lot of people who were like, I wish I had been there.
I know the tickets were sold out. I would have come.
Yeah. Let's do it again. Let's run it back.
Round 2.
Yeah.
Slightly bigger venue.
In the warehouse. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it was just incredible. Thank you for doing it with me.
Oh
I
my
will
God.
truly remember it until I die. I'm right now, I'm not like often posting on social media, but I am like, how many Instagram posts is too many before it becomes embarrassing? We're going to find out.
I feel like I've done
We're going to find out.
I feel like I've done more than you have, and that's
You were
incorrect.
You were there right away.
That's
posting,
incorrect.
But this is how I know
you
you're
should like flood the feed.
You're
know
a
what I mean?
creature of the internet and you know how it's done. I'm like,
No.
I gotta go hit Pickles Pub, and then, oh no, and 24 hours have passed. You were there too. I hadn't been to Pickles in 1,000 years. That was also fun, just to be home.
We had some obstacles also in Baltimore. Anyway, we should talk about we
had a
should
great
talk about
time.
lanterns.
Great
There's a lot to talk about. We'll probably keep talking about this Baltimore experience until we die.
Forever. Will we do a live show at some point in Rushville, Nebraska?
No.
I'm open to it.
Okay.
I am open to doing a live pod from the field.
Okay.
Give us some Pioneers merch.
Is Rushville, Nebraska a real place?
I think so.
Is it? Yeah. Okay, maybe then. I thought it was fictional. Okay, spoiler warning. A little different this time than last week. In general, we say comics canon is fair game. We will talk about it. To give context, we're not going to like deep into comics lore. There are some storylines that we were just sort of like, do we want to, like, does the casual listener want to know about what happened to Hal Jordan in this particular storyline? We weren't sure. And we were like, we're wondering if it's going to be a key part of this season.
Right, and genuinely don't know, but if it is, and then we've talked about it,
does it feel like a spoiler for people?
When it wasn't intended to be, so we're being cautious.
So we're going to do like a rapid fire sort of a comics lore, really more of a listener theory corner, because we got a lot of listener emails about these comic storylines. So we will have a section at the end where we will give you fair warning that if you want to be hyper vigilant about spoilers, this section is coming. We're not going to have we may or may not have our usual sort of like horn sound, but we will definitely with our brains and our hearts and our minds and our mouths give you warning to leave if you don't want to know. Anything else?
No, I think that sounds exactly right. Maybe we'll expand that section as we go across the season.
We'll see.
Who knows? Who knows?
Let's go now to our opening snapshot. Quick facts. Episode 2, Trust Fall.
Yes.
Directed by James Hawes, written by Vanessa Baden Kelly and Chris Monday, or Baden maybe. Anyway, Vanessa is also, I believe, a producer on the show. Week 2 reception for Lanterns, just really quickly checking in on the old unreliable tomato meter. The critic score has gone up 94% from critics.
Wow.
Fan score has gone slightly down 82%
Still
from fans. Still quite good.
Yeah.
Still quite good. And then we didn't have numbers when we recorded our podcast for episode 1. But with the usual caveats when they're like, best HBO Max debut on a Sunday when the rain conditions were this or whatever.
Yeah.
But like quite a good debut. Outperformed It, Welcome to Derry, The Penguin, and True Detective Night Country. So like pretty solid numbers. And with every expectation that they'll sort of like go up and up from there. But like a pretty good start for True Detective in general. Mallory Rubin, episode 2. You loved episode 1. How did you feel about episode 2?
I quite enjoyed it. I really did. I think that splitting, because there were a lot of things that worked for me about the premiere, but so much of what worked about this, as not only about the first episode, as not only an episode of television, but as a like an onboarding into this experience of this series, was the energy between the rapport between Hal and John. And so to split them up at the beginning of this episode could have gone so wrong.
Ballsy.
Yeah, I thought it was really bold and really effective because it not only shows us how they're each navigating life and what they're pursuing and how they think. How does Hal go and conduct an investigation, do some true detecting, right? It allows us to understand. You can only really understand a relationship if you understand the people inside of it, right? And so to have glimpsed them as a duo first and then get to see how they navigate the field and their circumstances on their own, but still find creative ways like the phone call when John has arrived at Hal's house. And not only are they interacting by saying things to each other, even though they're not in the same physical space, as we'll talk about more when we get to that scene, that's like such an intimate thing and such a revealing and illuminating stretch to have John walk through Hal's nearly empty home. What does that tell him?
You've not been to my home yet.
Well, I haven't been invited.
You have. The door's open.
Oh, the old standing invite book. That's what I do, and we all know that's bullshit.
I know. Turnabout's fair play.
So I really loved splitting them up. I thought it worked quite well. And then obviously they're brought back together at the end. And not only are they brought back together, they're brought back together with a ticking clock. This new 48-hour circumstance, the hunt for the Manhunter is on. I thought once again, the way that this episode found the balance between the grounded, rooted Rushville, Oracle City stretches and the glimpses and peppering in of comic book elements. We end this episode with not only Hal Jordan in the suit after seeing John find the suit, find the lantern, power charge the ring, we get a rushed, hurried vow. Hal suits up, flies into space, and is talking to Sinestro at the end of this episode. So I thought that was also really smart. We're only 2 episodes in, largely in our canvas jackets in the small town in Nebraska, and then we end in space with Sinestro. So we're like signaling we are still in a Green Lantern story, even though this has been so deliberately crafted in this kind of tonal space. So I'm just really great. There's a lot of interesting shipping fodder here for the Kerry Hal heads out there.
Oh, I thought it was for the Sinestro Hal heads.
That as well. And then obviously the most important thing in the entire episode is that we meet Earl Jordan. Hal Jordan pet guy. You thought I was in before, folks? Oh. My God.
Are you a good gardener? Can you keep plants alive?
Wouldn't know.
Okay.
I haven't really tried.
You've never tried. What if it required
I think I would be okay at it.
A lot of Tupperwares of beef and bison?
As you know, our fridge at pretty much any time is mostly just full of
leftovers.
Beverages, usually. We don't have a lot of food in the house. We have a lot of snacks in the pantry and a lot of ice cream in the freezer. And then the fridge is mostly just beverages. And then we order a lot of food. So I think I could clear the necessary space for some beef bison blend.
I have this in the notes later, but I just need to address it right now.
Do it.
Really shocking setup, honestly. Delighted to meet Earl Jordan. Delighted to find out that Hal not only has a carnivorous alien plant that's his pet, his pal or whatever, but has given it his last name.
It's so sweet.
It's very sweet. Yeah. So to see the stacks of Tupperware that say Earl Jordan.
He's meal prepping for Earl.
It's very charming.
Yeah.
From a food storage point of view,
you've got concerns.
I am someone who does regularly cook meat in the house, and you have to rotate it between the freezer and then defrost it and then heat it unless you're buying fresh all the time.
Right.
That much thawed meat in the fridge is such cause for alarm for me. And I know that Hal didn't know necessarily that he was going out of town, but even if he was in town, that much raw thawed meat right next to where you're keeping your bottle of Coke and your ketchup,
your Coors Light,
is a no.
Well, there are, I think, 2 possibilities. One, Hal maybe not thinking so much about food safety. That strikes me as possible.
Right.
2, and this would be a little bit of an asterisk on the Hal Jordan pet guy. Earl Jordan. Does Earl possibly just need to eat 12 times a day?
Oh,
is that maybe just 2 days worth of food?
Yeah, sweet little Sunfire needs to devour people.
Exactly.
Possibly.
And then I shift into,
it's irresponsible to leave your pet like that.
What was the plan?
Yeah.
Hal, you're popping all over the galaxy. Yeah. Nobody on call to check in and feed Earl?
He's just supposed to be going out to tacos with Johnny, and then he fucked off to Nebraska, so he didn't have a plan in place. But I understand that he doesn't have a lot of attachments. We understand that this is a key part of his character, but you need to have a pet sitter that, someone, a person Someone's definitely cleaning that
That
house.
property is immaculately kept despite being devoid of possessions.
The grounds are manicured.
Grounds are stunning.
Someone's cleaning all of the empty rooms.
There's a little robot snake in the pool. Like someone is checking it. So maybe someone's feeding Earl, but Hal wanted John to go check in still.
I just have I have food safety concerns.
Listen, in our era of constant food recalls and food parallels, I think this is a good flag on your part.
Okay, great. Here's what I want to say. I also really enjoyed this episode. I appreciate it as like a piece of entertainment, a piece of storytelling, and then also as like a not to like say something kind of douchey, like someone who like studies how TV is put together.
Sure.
I thought this was really masterfully crafted because when you are launching a world like this for people and you need to introduce a lot of rules, this episode is heavy with exposition. Really heavy. You mentioned the suit. We get the suit, we get the lantern, we learn the rules of it, different things. We learn about Manhunters in the first place. Like, you know, there's just like a lot to learn inside of this episode. And it is really deftly deployed. And we'll talk about some sort of like some screenwriting tricks that they use to make sure that it all felt like it moved at a quick pace. And there's a lot of showing, not telling, but there's also a lot of telling in this episode. And oftentimes that can go very poorly. But to your point, they didn't really bog down the premiere with a ton of exposition. There was a lot, but like it wasn't like, here's the lantern, here are the rules of the lanterns, here's that, this, that, and the other thing. So I thought that was smart to wait till episode 2 to do that. The episode 1 focus, as you pointed out, was really on that like Hal-John relationship. And then I just really enjoyed not just the two of them separated to see how they work on their own, but also to see how both of them work without the ring. Like, who are they depowered? Who is Hal after the last 5% of the ring kicks off and he falls and he spits out gravel and he has to like haul those naked alien corpses around all just by himself, just like grit and ingenuity, you know? And John.
So jealous.
John, who's not a like superhero, without, you know, he doesn't have like superpowers necessarily, but he holds his own in a fight with like obviously superpowered aliens. Yeah. You know, and the fight on the freeway, and I was listening to the official podcast and they were talking about how I had already noted like what a good on-screen runner Aaron Pierre is, but they noted that like
the stunt performer spot,
that he was like a track star. And they shot it with a stunt double, and they're like, actually Aaron goes faster.
That's amazing.
So they swapped Aaron in for that. And I was just sort of like,
incredible.
You could tell because the camera doesn't have to hide his face and it's actually him. So like this is such a promising action star in the making. Like the you know, the places he could go after this. I've also been having a really fun time in the last week. You know, I mentioned that I was like familiar with the Green Lantern basic lore, but I've been having a really good time sort of like when I can grab time between trips to Baltimore and stuff like that, digging into sort of the Green Lantern comics history and like what the character has meant over time and how that has changed. The different, of course, people have had the monikers, but also just thinking a lot about how the Green Lantern, no matter his moniker or her moniker, is a superhero that really engages writers and artists because, you know, John Stewart, Hal Jordan, whoever they are, that character is like a collaborative storyteller with the person who's making the art. So because the comic writers and artists are crafting the story, they're drawing the story and they're writing the story. But let's say Hal Jordan is also actively participating in the story because depending on what he decides to create, that determines like where the story goes from there. So like Green Lantern as a storyteller superhero and why that has really engaged the creatives behind this character.
It's a great show.
Has been like, and then there's like a bunch of other stuff that I will talk about as we go. But like that's just been like really fun for me to educate myself a bit more on this character and what this character has meant to the various people who have written him and occasionally her over the years.
It's a great flag early in the pod, and like we got a few fun little nuggets on that front, acknowledgments of that idea in this episode. Something like at the end, you know, obviously everything with John manifesting the bird and what that tells us about his prodigious abilities.
Yeah,
but you know, something at the very end, like, you know, we talked last week about the glimpses of John sketching and through the two-way interrogation mirror, et cetera, and like the idea of perspective and artistic ability, and Jon Stewart as architect and artist. But just more broadly, you have a moment at the end of this, like Hal saying, well, what's up with that bird? We'll talk about that scene more when we get there. And the bird, a wonderful bird. We talked about Earl, but I loved the bird. That was just delightful and so rich in terms of what it tells us about everybody who's observing that, but also John, who is making it and then letting it go, right? There's so much to parse there. But the note from Hal of like, well, what's that about? That came from your subconscious.
Yeah, exactly.
So what that tells us about, there is often in the field, in a moment of need, something very practical, something utilitarian about a
bottle
construct.
Opener, if you want to,
something very flirtatious, like a bottle opener. But then there is the deeper rooting in what you carry inside of you and how what you project into the world, what that conveys about who you are and what you think and how you feel. And given the through line that we're tracking and that is, inherent to Lanterns canon, but that we are both so interested in, like, what is this show, a prestige TV drama on HBO, interested in mining on the emotion front, right? Fear and will and anger and other emotions and how they inform each other. Like, what do all of these, there's a really interesting aspect of this episode where, Anton says, like, have you ever been deceived by somebody you love?
John's just like, yes.
Yes.
And we're like, what? Who?
Yeah.
When?
And
how?
then not only is that such an intriguing note to give us for John, feels very intentional that this is in the episode where we meet Sinestro.
Yeah.
And we're thinking about what is Hal's version of that. So to your point about structure, the fact that this is such a meaty and intriguing episode for them as individuals, but those parallels are there. Beef and bison, homemade meal prep, really great. I agree with what you said about what do they do without the ring. It's we talked about this recently in the context of covering another property, but it's if you're nothing without that suit, then you shouldn't have it, right? What does the ring and the power of the ring and being chosen do for you? But also, like, you are the person who is wearing it or suiting up.
And what I like about what they show us in this episode is, like, there's so, from the beginning, and again, you outlined this theme for me when you had watched the episode before. I had this idea of, like, what is earned versus what is given to you. And all of what the show has already told us about how John has had to, like, work and train his whole life to, feel like he deserves to be here, has earned this spot or whatever. And then how it was just given to him. Like, that dichotomy is there. But also, Hal is not useless without the ring. No. And I think that that's, like, a really fun, like, complication, because there could be a version of this story where he is, like, the privileged white man who was given this thing and then he's nothing without it, and the thing that is so interesting is, like, he believes he is nothing without it, but we watch him in this episode. Yeah, he gets shot. That's not great. But, like, do so much.
Through and through. Glad you're a fan of his work.
Yeah, do so much, like, ingenuity-wise without the ring.
Right.
And so to see him, you mentioned, you flagged this last week, but just sort of, like, to see his competency.
Yes, it's crucial.
Is important.
It's crucial.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go now to the deep dive.
Wonderful.
All right, before we start with sort of the opening of this episode, I do want to just have, like, a little pre-chat about, it's 2016, this entire episode. And so we had talked about the various, 10 years apart timelines that we might explore. 96, 86, 2006, 2026. Were you surprised to see that this episode was just in 2016?
I don't. Yeah, maybe a little, but I don't. I think just, like, reflecting on it now after the fact, I don't know if I was honestly even consciously thinking about it while watching it, like, we're not moving through time. I think that the split of the two primary leads of the show would have made also moving through time feel maybe a little full, a little overly full, overly stuffed. So I think keeping us rooted in the present not of our lives here in 2026, but what seems to be the primary timeline of the show, makes sense given that we were in multiple locations and that our primary figures were apart. Some people don't like to watch the previews for next week on. So if you don't want to hear this, hit fast forward like once or twice. We'll keep this quick. They showed the preview for episode 3 at the end of it. Certainly appears like we're moving through time next week in a very John-centric episode. So that's exciting. So I wonder if each episode will function a little bit differently about where we are on the map, where we are in time. I just think maybe we'll get all of it at some point.
Some people, and it doesn't matter, but, like, I think that some people thought with this sort of True Detective idea that it would be more closely hewing to what some seasons of True Detective have been, which is like we're splitting time sort of evenly between these two things.
Right.
And that is not the case here. We were primarily in 2016 in the first episode, and we are entirely in 2016 in this episode. So we'll see, as you said, where we go from here. But I thought that was interesting.
I mean, we'll say, like, because we had speculated about the possibility last week based on where the premiere ended with, you know, Hal bullet hole in his forehead on the snowy bleachers. To that point, will we have that kind of tandem investigation across time? Maybe that still happens. Mm-hmm. It's possible that still happens. We talked about like the number of shots in this season on where John has a goatee and seems to maybe be set in that future, Guy Gardner's appearances, etc. I was happy to come into episode 2 and be with
Kyle Chandler
and Nair and Pierre.
For sure.
So if that is more a like this is looming in the distance, but we are largely operating in 2016 with them together, or maybe glimpsing the past versus spending a ton of time in the future. I mean, I'm open to all possibilities. I think that would be my preference given my deep and abiding enthusiasm for Hal Jordan.
A Hal full story. Okay.
Exactly.
Are we shifting from Alien Watch to Manhunter Watch, or do we have room for both inside of this episode, inside of this series? You know, we were doing like, we're talking about Secret Scroll Watch, which is a leftover from, Marvel and Secret Invasion. And yeah, it's a great show. So as we shift into, and we got a lot of emails about Manhunter Watch and Manhunter theories, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I'm still open to like anyone can be an alien. Anyone can be a Manhunter. Anyone can be, I mean, we meet other
exactly.
aliens.
I think that given that we meet Anton, still to this day, I'm like, Spears from The Wire.
Oh, yeah. Definitely Spears from The Wire.
Until the day I die, that'll be just, it's like, I can't help it.
That's like when I go, oh, it's Frank Sabaka. Frank Sabaka's
always.
Chris Bauer.
It's always a Frank Sabaka. Always a Frank Sabaka. You know, Tina's whole crew are like, we're here for, we're hunting the hunter. So yes,
here's what I'm saying.
It's all in the mix.
We're in Rushville, Nebraska.
Yeah.
We're got our eye out for a manhunter.
Yes.
I'm not content to say that's all we should be looking for in Nebraska.
Okay. I quite agree. Who else has taken off a hoodie and is standing there in short sleeves shivering on a snowy field like Waylon was?
It's a great question. Speaking of Waylon, we got a lot of emails from listeners with suggestions for names of aliens. I put most of them in here in the document. I was curious if any stuck out to you as particularly delightful.
Should you do a dramatic reading so that we can hear out loud how many of them actually really sound like
I don't
alien?
think we have the time.
Obviously, it varies like accent to accent. So Alan, Haley Ann is pretty good. Haley Ann is tough to top.
Gabe said Haley Ann, nothing like a good old Southern double name to give you that human energy, and I agree.
Haley Ann is probably the winner. There's a lot of great ones here.
Jacob suggested Elon. Would that be so surprising? Elon the alien.
Oh man.
Our listener Alan, who's not an alien probably, wrote in to let us know, and I know this is true for a lot of people, that Jon Stewart in the animated Justice League is like their Green Lantern. Yes. And they grew up with Jon Stewart, very important person, and a very important person for a lot of people in terms of like, this is the first time I saw a superhero who looked like me. It was Jon Stewart in this animated series or in the comics or whatever.
Yes.
But Alan wrote in not only to say that, but also to share a photo of himself.
This is incredible.
Where he worked at Six Flags over Texas back in the 2000s. I did it because DC had a partnership to put costume characters in the park, so I could audition to be Jon Stewart. One of the coolest experiences of my life, and it's a photo of him with his mom.
I love this so much.
And he looks amazing.
This is so good.
It was very sweet. So thank you for that photo.
Thank you, Alan.
We also got several emails from listeners talking to us about Jessica Cruz, who is a person who's had the Green Lantern moniker inside the comics, and a character with social anxiety. And to really dig into that character as an example of how the comics has over the decades veered from this idea of, like, we were talking about this idea of emotional absolutism. So veered from this idea of fearlessness to this idea of overcoming fear and the distinction between those two. So it's not just an absence of fear. It's like you feel the fear, but you do it scared anyway, right? Yes. And so there's this section where she's talking about her social anxiety, and she says, the ring doesn't fix it, right? I don't get better from this. I fight anxiety every day. It's the biggest battle I have. And then also, when a new Green Lantern is chosen, They're inducted to the Corps with a specific phrase, you have the ability to overcome great fear. So again, it's just this idea. And like, I understand that, again, to go back to last week's episode, I understand that was not the point you were making, that it was just like a complete binary like that. But I do think when we think of something like John Sr. shooting an apple off of his child's head in order to like make sure his child feels no fear, and we got a great email about that I'll read a little bit later, but like that there maybe have been some versions of that. Or if Hal feels like he's not allowed, he has no attachments, he doesn't know anyone. He lost a parent. That's the scariest thing one can experience. Yes. And so he will not connect, or he lost Sinestro, and that's the most traumatic thing that someone can experience, his mentor. And so he will cut himself off from people, and that is a way to avoid fear. But to avoid fear completely feels like the thing that leaves you the most open.
Sure, of course.
To
absolutely.
influence and warping.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I was saying last week. It's so interesting to me about this version of the story from these creators who are obviously, we're Damon super fans. That's no secret to anyone. But, Ozark, True Detective, Tom King's work, what Mundy has made. Like, I think with these performers and the HBO Sunday night slot, and just also like what we got right away in the first episode, that line from Kerry about, he's lonely, like signaling in a number of ways to us right away that the show was going to be interested in interrogating what it means to have to tell yourself, I'm not afraid.
Right.
Like, that is just such a interesting place to find any person, but particularly somebody in a very visible position of carrying the burden of being the chosen one, or trying to seek out that mantle and saying, like, I'm the one who can do this thing. Everybody's eyes are on me all the time. So
I also think that like those burdens of expectations, that Mundy and all the rest have talked a lot about in terms of like Hal being the first human Green Lantern. There's no blueprint for this, having to deal with the burden of expectations. But again, I think back to like the Jedi and like this really unreasonable expectation of like perfection and purity, and how that leads to the fall for so many of them, because you cannot be that perfect paragon of what have you.
Certainly not.
All right. We open with what I'm calling the Maddie Saracen in a shower, Tim Riggins running in the rain, ice bucket challenge, Coach Taylor tough love special. I don't know how they did in the caption. Yeah, he wrote cold open. There you go. That's close enough. We saw this at Comic-Con. You and I both were like, it's Matt Saracen in a shower time, so right? John wants to know why Hal hasn't alerted the Guardians about the dead aliens. And we are also curious about why Hal is reluctant to reach out to the Guardians. He looks quite nervous later in the episode when he asks John if he's told the Guardians about the Manhunter. Mm-hmm. What, if anything, do you want to say about this?
In terms of the moment at the end of the episode, their conversation in the parking lot, I think in general there's a lot to parse and read on Hal Jordan's face in every conversation he has in this episode. It's just, he's so expressive, and because so much of the question of like what is Hal carrying, and how much of like what he's saying to other people is something he's forcing himself to believe, and how much is he just like lying to himself? What is he not ready to really like stare plainly in the face? I think the conversation at the end, Mr. Chain of Command now wants me to break, like, I think there are a lot of potential interpretations of it. I think some of it in an episode called Trust Fall is always asking ourselves who is interrogating whether they can trust the other person. It's always going in all directions. So like John choosing to tell Hal about the Manhunters when he not only didn't have to, but when Anton was like,
I love that.
This guy is like, don't trust him. That's obviously a huge part of the Trust Fall idea. But frankly, like, Hal is running his test too. You calling the Guardians? No, I work for you. I report to you. Can either of them put their faith and trust into the bond they have with each other? Hal is constantly like, this guy is here to be my trainee, but what does that really mean? What does it mean to be teaching this person how to do the thing that I have done? And so when we talk about the big idea of fear, and you mentioned this earlier, like, he's afraid of what he would be without the ring. Well, like, what is a larger version of fear to carry inside of you than like what is my function, not just as a hero, but as a person in the world, if somebody else does this thing that I do?
And better than I ever did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, there are a few times in this episode where characters, whether nefariously or not, are actively trying to drive a wedge between Hal and John.
Oh, yeah.
And like that, that wedge is already there just based on the circumstances and their personalities. But the fact that there are these external forces trying to pull them apart, and the fact that we at home, that tension that we at home are really hoping that they can find a way to be together.
Yes.
Lanterns,
That's right.
Yep. And the fact that we know we have hanging over us this future where Hal dies alone, frozen on a bleacher. Were they united at that point? When's the last time they had spoken to each other? Did they ever figure it out together, or did they figure out it together for a time and then it didn't, and then it fell apart, or what happened? We don't know. But something that Damon Lindelof has said many times when talking about story, I think most recently to me when talking about Severance, is just like the most important thing inside of a story are the people I care about going to be okay?
Yeah. Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Are the people I care about going to be okay? Will they be able to connect with each other?
Right.
Yeah. And, Hal, we know, is going to die alone, frozen on a bleacher. So, like, in many ways, no, he's not going to be okay. But, like, what kind of connection can he find before there? Does he have a connection with Kerry at some point?
Did he know that Noah was all state before John found out?
I mean.
Yeah, and then which is more, we were
did
briefly.
He train him?
That would be, that's our headcanon. Whether or not it ends up being true, the answer is yes. We talked about this very briefly at the end last week, but like, what's more tragic? If Hal and John do forge that bond that we want them to forge, and then we lose Hal, or if they don't
never make it
quite, and that those wedges that people are trying to insert. But that was why it felt so wonderful. It was interesting to hear, you mentioned the official pod that on that in that discussion, like very quick mention of just how that specifically, like what is the right moment to have John tell Hal about the Manhunters was like a huge discussion in the writers' room. And I think this feels really right, deciding to have him do it, not only like frankly practically because the 48-hour clock, it's like, we need to get we're inside of this pressure cooker of that countdown. But it tells us that John, despite all of the things that he's caring about Hal, and they're both constantly looking at the other person. Like, there are a lot of moments like that in the premiere that we talked about last week. There are a lot of them in this episode too, including right in this flight training scene, like unclenched, so good, right? They're both seeing something in the other one that doesn't sit quite right. But then there's also something maybe to pull them toward each other. And John choosing to tell Hal that is a really big, it would be very easy to let everybody else, Zoe in the cafe, like, if you have to ask if you can trust him, you already know. But then what does John do right after that? In a moment of real intensity where he's like, you fucked up the rental car. You don't take anything seriously. Yeah. It's all a fucking joke to you. Still, I'm going to tell you this.
And attention for us at home is a question of like how much of that is an actual bid for connection and how much of that is his training of the chain of command,
Yep.
Okay, so we have this flying sequence.
This is so good.
I'm a fighter pilot, so I've heard
incredible.
Is real, like, I have the blood of Akasha in me from Hal Jordan. How many times has he said it? So
God.
Good.
Really great.
But there's a couple moments, and you mentioned Kyle Chandler's face and the play of emotion where, like, this idea of fear. If Hal Jordan is a character who has been heroic in his life but is really having a crisis of fear and insecurity at this moment in his life, something that Kyle Chandler does repeatedly. He does it here. He does it later when Kerry pulls him over, where he's almost like a kid who's been like caught. And then he sort of like squares his shoulders and is like defiant in the moment. But there's like this childlike fear of like, oh man, she's pulled me over and I have naked alien corpses in the car. But he's just sort of like, what? He's posturing, right? And so he does it here when he like, when John puts the ring on, he holds it up and Hal like recoils. Yeah. Like has an instant recoiling of like, as soon as you put the ring on, this is something he's afraid of. As soon as he puts the ring on, he's going to use it on me and take the Green Lantern from me and it's going to be over.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this instant recoil and then this sort of like posturing. And then later, like when John first tries to fly, he does this like sort of back up, but then he's like, I knew he wasn't going to be able to do it. You know what I mean? It's just like this wordless passage of play of emotions on his face constantly.
I liked that we got a version of that from John too in this episode with Earl, actually. Like when Earl first kind of activates and John also is like, whoa, you know, and it's like, there are people, and part of being a person or a lantern is saying, okay, I got it. I'm going to be cool here.
I'm overcoming
fear.
Yeah.
What is the real, and we love the we mentioned last week both the kind of Dune litany of fear version, which like is fear is the mind killer, fear is bad. But still even that, it's about telling yourself with using your training to push through it. We are more prone to the Thronesian. Where do you find your courage? You find your courage by working through your fear. That's something that we love inside of Thrones, but also talk about in other stories. The fact that for John in that moment with Earl, it's almost like reflex, right? Part of being a person is responding to stimuli, but also there's the bird. He's like, don't eat my bird. And so he's thinking about like protecting a thing that at the end of the episode, he will have to put his hand on and turn to dust.
That's honestly the wildest moment of this
episode. It was great.
To watch him, again, from like a screenwriting perspective, to give John something to protect this entire episode. That's the like classic screenwriting saving the cat sort of thing. So to give him something vulnerable to protect, and also to see the bird sort of like fly into action during the van fight. The bird is like pecking at the alien who's attacking him. You know what I mean? So like there is a bond between them.
No question. John reaching out to catch the bird as he dives. All of it.
But so for him to just dispassionately, whether that's a performance or not, but dispassionately, turn that bird into ether is
it's another version of these
stunning,
all connected, right? Another version of like, I mean, what is on the Kyle Jordan face front, like what is playing in Hal's mind in that moment? What is the test always that they're running on each other? But for John, it felt like you're telling me that this has to be something massive in terms of what it says about my like psyche, my past.
Like you don't get to know that.
But like also I determine what matters to me, right? And so it's another version of are you afraid? Are you afraid? Like, are you defined by any of the things other than the decision you make in the moment to take the next step forward? It's like John feels like he has to say, I don't need this bird to be with me.
Right.
Would it be so bad to keep the bird with you? But he feels like he has to do that to prove something really,
to prove
really
that he
interesting.
Doesn't need it, but also just to sort of like, that's an insight from Hal. There's that has to be true.
Yeah.
That bird has to mean something to him we will surely find out. But like for him to be like, no, that's a lie and that's a wall, right? No, it doesn't mean anything to me, you know?
On the Hal, the flinching in the flight training too, the other thing, of course, on the fear, there's the like, oh, am I about to be blasted back? Or are you going to like bop me in the face with some construct? There's all of that. Will you try to take over in this moment, like you said? There's also just the fear that's underlying all of this of, will you be better at this than me?
Oh, yeah.
Will you be so good at this?
And he instantly is.
And then like you said, the relief of, oh, you can't fly, actually.
You can't fly.
I get to be better at this one thing. But then you make this bird,
this bird that like no one can do in comics canon. Like to make something alive is extremely rare for a Green Lantern to be able to do it, to be able to keep it intact without having the ring on. To pass out, because what Hal says is like you lose concentration, you lose the bird, and he passes out, and the bird's still there.
Intriguing.
Yike. All right. So we get this ring near depletion moment. Our listener Steve says, haven't we all had to do work and the charger is at home? Great moment.
It is real. I wrote down iPhone charger as well in my notes because it is a real like, okay, you can do so much. The idea that with the ring, the only limit is your imagination, what you can conceive. Well, that's very powerful. But then these practical caps, right? You've got to remember to charge. Is the lantern with you? The way that it's not just something for us to think about as viewers or readers, but like Waylon called that out in the first episode in the interrogation scene with Hal for a reason, right? How much power do you have left, right? Did you bring the lantern with you?
But also,
this is something they have to think about.
Is that like a leash or a collar that the Guardians have put on the Green Lanterns of just sort of that cap on their power, right?
You're going to have to go plug in at home or take the lantern with you. And yes, this just in terms of inside the flow of this, that's more broadly about the canon, what's interesting. So in terms of the flow of this season, Chekhov's one-time re-up trick.
Oh, the 5%. The Fonzie bump on the ring?
Obviously, that will come back into play in some moment. The question then becomes, in what circumstance and for whom?
For whom? I hope it's John. He's paying attention. He's learning lessons.
That would be great.
All right. Hal makes John take a flight back to Coast City.
Can I just say very
quickly, which is a fictional city, unlike I guess Rushville, Nebraska.
Some San Francisco ties in terms of where in California this is supposed to be. The show, we've talked a lot about individual lines that have made us laugh, but just broadly, one of the things that is working so well about the show is that it is funny. This show could have been so like dour and serious. The booked you a window, I don't understand. On an airplane, there are seats near the window and seats near the aisle and seats in the middle, but nobody wants this. It's just like the injections of very authentic levity into these conversations. Obviously, Unclench was a great one. You know, cut out the sir bullshit. We both know you don't mean it. Like, this is a funny scene.
Yeah.
We just talked about all of these really intense character beats and a lot of interesting lore beats. I was laughing watching the scene. It's a hard balance to strike. I think it's just very impressive so far through 2 episodes.
For us to, in that scene, learn about ring depletion, trick power-ups, how concentration and constructs are connected, flying, like all of that just happens in this one parking lot scene. And in almost every scene in this episode, at least 2 things are going on at the same time.
Right.
And that is like a really smart way to keep us sort of activated and entertained. Even in like, one of the most egregious lore dumps, but like I loved the scene, was when Anton is telling him about the Manhunters.
Yeah.
And just the way that is shot, where the camera keeps cutting to this device that is being assembled. So the tension is racking up and we're like, what is that? Yeah. That doesn't look like human. What is that? John's worried about what that is. We don't know what that is. And so like Anton's talking, we're paying attention, but we're also like, what's that? What's that? Yes. What's that? And so that's just like keeps it lively. It keeps it going,
Our sweet little bird is watching from the drop ceiling.
Cutting to the bird, cutting to the device. And you're just like, what's happening? All right. So after the parking lot scene, the flying instruction that is not really a flying instruction, opening credits logo. Hal works the case. We find Hal sitting on the bleachers where he will die. How many times do you think we're going to return to like that image of him sitting there on those bleachers as his like thinking spot? And would it make it interesting if that's his favorite spot to go and think for the rest of the season, then like what was he going to have a think about, in the snow when he died?
I know. It was it had that real, just authentic, like, oh man, you feel your heart and your stomach kind of clench when you see him there after how episode 1 ended. And it makes sense. He's there to look for clues, to investigate the crime. He's panning the scene. He's taking in intel. He's down looking at the blood spots. But it does just emotionally for us as viewers. We talk about the 48-hour clock. There's this 10-year clock, right? For us of doom, of peril for this person. So then, I don't know. There's a part of me that wants them to maintain a level of discipline where we're not going to see him there every single episode. And then there's a part of me that's like, if every episode I see him sitting there and I feel that way, there will be something very effective about that. So, it was really good.
It's funny, we talked last week, of course, about in terms of this like 2026 specter that's looming over the season.
Yes.
I brought up Better Call Saul, which is one of my favorite things to talk about, of course. Andor, is another version of that where we know where those characters will go by the end of Andor. But of course, and I would say spoilers for Lost, but it's been a really long time. This is a Lost construction, the flash forward in Lost. And so when you're watching Lost and certain characters do or do not make it off the island in that stretch of the story, or like what's going to happen to someone like Jack Shepherd, where you're like, he's having these wins, but that there are these losses coming for him. Like that tension, that narrative tension and that emotional sort of like devastation, pre-devastation that's like waiting for you. And so even every win for Hal Jordan feels like a loss because we're one step closer to 10 years from now,
Lost as a comp and an influence, welcome always here on the House of R and for us. I think too, the balancing act then of giving us as viewers moments where we have foresight and awareness of something that the characters don't. Their fate.
Dramatic irony.
I mean, again, who knows? We got into Theory Corner a little bit last week. Like, who knows what we're actually seeing on that bleacher? But if that is what we're seeing. But then you pair that dramatic irony with the fact that because this is an investigation, it starts as the murder investigation, and now it's the alien investigation, and the Manhunter investigation, who's the benefactor, what other tech is here, where we're learning as you're tracking through these bits of the dispensing the lore and the canon and the mythology. Sometimes we're very much in tandem, like, John saying to Anton, like, I actually don't know what you're talking about. And we're like in a similar position, or maybe if you're a comic book fan, as we'll talk about when we get there, you have more information that you're bringing. But there are things that we don't know, and maybe Hal has more information than we do. We still have this big thing hanging over of like the hologram and the alert. There's Hale and Rushville, and this question of what led Abensur to this place in the first place, which we get some little breadcrumbs. So there's this question over this episode of like, what does Hal know? It was really interesting. Yeah, really interesting on this front, I thought, to have the clear, I know I'm moving a little bit in and out, but like to have when John told Hal about the Manhunters and Hal is like reacting, where did you hear that word, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like he's never heard of the Manhunters, but so he knows something we as viewers don't. Mm-hmm. And yet he doesn't know everything because he has to go ask Sinestro. Mm-hmm. So this level of like moving in and out of time and then who has what level of insight or awareness when, including us at home, that can just be like really hard to pull off in a way that feels
disorienting.
Yeah. Steady, but so far it's working, I think, quite well.
All right, so Hal's working the case. This might be me just being dumb, but like he's on the field.
Yeah.
Largely, I know this is a Pioneers team.
Yes.
We get the Pioneers logo on the coach's jacket later at the town hall meeting, whatever. Like it's a Pioneers, but there's also like a Go Bison sort of.
I thought that was just the Kimball, the other team, because it says KB Bison.
Oh, okay. So
I think just the away team.
They had okay.
Probably put up there. They brought the cheerleaders or some members of their band.
Thank
or something.
You for clarifying.
That was my.
I'm still learning sports.
Kimball Bison. Sports job. That's my assumption.
So Hal he does the whole gambit with the metal detectors that are not metal detectors. He drives through town. It looks all deserted. He turns off the car in the middle of the street and gets out, and then he flies up to the ground. This flying looks so much better to me because they did not use a digital double. This is definitely Kyle Chandler on a crane somewhere. You know what I mean? Maybe literally on that street. I don't know. But they just sort of like launched him up. And also the later flying takeoff looked really good because in Darkest Night, it looks better in Darkest Night than in Brightest Day. Sorry. It's just a fact. In terms of digital doubles and flying.
What does the vow mean to you? What does the oath mean to you?
I love this. This is so
this is good.
This is so sci-fi and eerie, as will the empty hospital be later, right?
Creepy.
The fact that the entire town can just press pause on everything that happens in the town to have a town meeting. That's some sci-fi. That's some Twilight Zone shit.
Yes. It also, of course, is a little Dylan Texas is readying for the game, because you see Coach Taylor driving through and it's like everyone's at the stadium. They're there for the Panthers game. But yeah, there was an eerie quality that carries into the town hall meeting itself in terms of this large, on the who knows what question, this question of what level of awareness does anyone out? So there's the Macon Ranch militia, but what about the wider town? Because the like, were you talking about me? You were talking about me, the hush that falls over the room when Hal Jordan walks in. I think there's some fun, speculating to do about what level of like, this is going on in my town, awareness anybody outside of a certain group has. I thought the re-up of the ring and then immediately the falling, like, first of all, effective. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to last very long if you do the 5%. Emergency power up, right? 2 episodes in a row where the television show Lanterns has shoved Kyle Chandler's perfect, beautiful face into either a brick wall at a bar or the gravelly asphalt.
You object?
It's my big note so far.
Je téléphoner la police. All right.
It's my big note so far.
All right. You mentioned, were you talking about me? I'm calling this section a very harried Sheriff Kerry. We're at the town hall meeting. The charm offensive from Kyle Chandler.
Oh my God.
So something I learned that I didn't know is that Alan Scott, who's the original Green Lantern, was designed after characters from folklore and mythology. Gil Kane designed Hal based on Paul Newman.
So tracks.
That's where we're starting. We're starting with Paul Newman, the twinkle in the eye, Paul Newman. Fun fact about Jon Stewart, 1971, Jon Stewart based on Sidney Poitier.
Oh, man.
Paul Newman and Sidney Poitier, that's the film Paris Blues, which rules. And so that's just what Green Lanterns is. It's just Paris Blues, but in comics. So
genuine legends and icons.
Yeah, the hottest men alive. So just something to think about.
Oh, man.
All right.
The detectors here at the town hall, at the Legion Hall as well.
More alien detectors. Billy Macon, surely at his father's behest, wants to come talk to Hal, urges him to go back to Coast City. We will get that urging again from Macon Sr., not to mention Sheriff Kerry. Several listeners let us know that Melanie Linsky has appeared on Matlock with her husband, Jason Ritter.
Look at that.
So
good for them.
That was something we were hoping for. Apparently, it's already happened. They already thought about it.
Will you be beginning your Matlock journey during season 1 of Lanterns?
No.
After season 1 of Lanterns?
I have a lot of other things to watch. But I support the Matlock lovers out there. I love when he says chirping about vengeance. What a great phrase.
Really
love
good.
that.
Yeah, really, really good.
And then he says you don't shoot people because of a gut feeling, talking about what Macon Sr. and his militia did. So like, how do they know it was aliens? Which is such an interesting thing for him to say when he like talks so glowingly about his own gut. To be like, you don't just go and gut alone and do something like this. And it's like, Hal's like, but my gut.
But I would.
Never wrong.
Yeah, because my gut is my gut. It's certain.
Do as I say, not as I do, you know? Sort of.
Yeah. It was the chirping about vengeance thing. Billy not replying to that. You know, we've talked a lot about what we can read in Hal, what we can read in John. But what are we reading in any member of this weird little town as well? And Billy's response to that was interesting to track. Certainly how much is like, I know something that I'm not saying. How much is fear? Right? For young William Jr. there, that's
Junior.
Just asking Junior. Just a question. We're just asking questions. The dual response to "Excuse me, honey" absolutely killed me.
I was gonna let you take it from here.
It's a gift. This is incredible. Again, this was so funny. Just as Hal saying, like, you know, I don't think I can keep quiet for that long. Really great. And then, of course, he gets the phone call from John and has to leave. But so what was your... Okay, because there was so much what seemed to be authentic kind of, maybe bonding is overstating it, but Kerry and Hal inside of the episode, you know, the later sequences.
Sitting vigil at his bedside.
Sitting by my bedside.
Did you... I tried to freeze frame Mahoney my way in to see what she was reading, and I could not figure it out.
I'm like blind, and as I told you, one of my eyelids is like half swollen shut. But
I
thought you might have grabbed the title. When they're talking, we can watch these episodes with subtitles. Notably, the murmurs, the chatter when Hal walks in. So it's the case on the screener, at least I'll say. I could check. I confirm this was the case on HBO Max too. I'll have to do that and report back next week. Whatever the townspeople are murmuring.
Rutabaga, peas and carrots.
Not subtitled. Yeah. Don't want us to know exactly what they're saying in that little stretch there. So that's interesting. You could pick up on one line I caught. Why don't they go back where they're from? The Lanterns, certainly, because so much of this episode, as Hal is discussing in many scenes, is they want me to leave. It makes me think I should stay, right? And Macon just directly is like, get out of here. And as you noted, Kerry has like her maybe slightly more hearted version of that.
Yeah.
But the fact that Sheriff Kerry in this scene, in a very onstage public setting, and she'll later say to Hal, very Allison Hightower to Otto Hightower, like when you undermine me at that table full of men, right? Like coded conversation here. But she throws to the coach. We were just talking about the game, and the coach is like, no, we weren't.
Yeah.
You know, and has to stand up. So she's participating in that fiction, even though later she will be more forthright with him. It seems, how many people in that room have a level of information about anything happening on the Macon Ranch, the benefactor, anything else? Are the Macons the only ones in possession of those facts? What does Kerry herself know?
Great questions.
Very curious.
Great questions. On this sort of like, we know where this is going, I wanted to talk about that also in terms of the tragedy of this like ship you have running, right? Because like,
sure,
any step forward we make, any sort of like answering to Hun moment that we have in an episode, there's an air of tragedy because it's going to be Kerry looking at his dead body 10 years from now, you know?
I just hope that they got 10 years of great sex in before that.
Our listener...
We should all be so lucky.
Our listener, Atharv, I believe is how you pronounce his name, was talking again about this idea of the 10-year dramatic irony. And they wrote, I also think it's extremely interesting to make a mentor-mentee show about the Lanterns in a universe where we already know neither is the Green Lantern in, quote, present day.
Right.
Obviously, Guy Gardner is not in the show yet, not for long, but this is one of the better dramatic uses of a universe where we know that in 2016, Hal has the ring and John is his mentee, and yet in 2026, Hal is dead, and somehow Guy got the ring. And that can't have been what anyone wanted. So how? Why? And Tom King on the official podcast last week said Guy Gardner has the ring.
Right.
Like that's where Hal's missing ring. It's on Guy Gardner's finger. So we were like, oh, there are multiple rings or blah blah. At that point, Hal's ring, which is not on his frozen little fingies, it found Guy Gardner.
Much like Nathan Fillion, a very important part of my life for a long time. Crashing the Comic-Con panel.
Yeah.
Guy Gardner came in there. And, you had brought up Guy, we'll call him Guy. You brought up Guy a couple times last pod and that question of, what would it mean? Would it mean that something had changed about the core rule
Can there be two?
At that point?
Well, here's my question.
Or is he interfering?
Perhaps. Did he abscond with the ring? Does, something like that. But theory corner.
Tell me.
Because this question of like, there can be only one.
Right.
Let's say there's one ring designated to Earth.
One ring.
Uh-huh. Can John Stewart be the Green Lantern without a ring? Because of what we learned in this episode.
If that is one of the interests of the show, exploring that question.
Yeah.
They are doing a good job of laying track for examining it.
Just thought. Yeah. There's this great write-up of this 1998 San Diego Comic-Con panel where John Broome, who wrote Hal Jordan for like basically the entirety of the 60s, who has given very few interviews in his life. Basically, he worked at DC for like the 1960s and then like left, tried to unionize at DC, didn't really work out, kind of left and didn't give a ton of interviews, hasn't talked about it, but he did this panel in 1998. And reading this write-up was so cool because it was like all of these like comic greats came to like attend the panel and like
to hear him speak,
pay homage.
Oh, I love it.
To John Broome. But he was talking about how in the 60s when they were doing these Green Lantern comics, that they would start with the cover. They would do the cover art. So this is what he said. The cover sometimes provided the story in a sketchy kind of way. Then I'd work out some kind of understanding or explanation of the cover. The cover usually presented some kind of mystery. Something was happening. Someone was getting poisoned or frozen or killed or something like that. So I just like this idea of like the Hal Jordan death tableau in 2026 being sort of this like, okay, that's what's going to happen. Now we need to figure out how we get there. Right. Sort of challenge that the show gave itself in this sort of Green Lantern comic tradition, which I really like. Of corpses and mansions and supersuits. I would divide, like a lot of times when we sort of lay out the notes, if Hal's doing something over here and John's doing something over here, we'll take it in chunks. But these are so intermingled, we have to do it together. And this is where
is that not the lesson, perhaps, inside of all
our
of this?
Lanterns. Blake Snyder's famous screenwriting book, Save the Cat, has this, among the many lessons about how to hide exposition, one of my favorites is one called Pope in the Pool Technique. Which is originally from a script called The Plot to Kill the Pope, where the Pope is being like given details of his day, like his secretaries are like, these are all the things you have to do today, but the Pope is swimming while it's happening, and it is such like an unusual thing to see that you're just like distracted by it. And this is something that like The Big Short made great use of, where they're like, here's Margot Robbie in a bathtub, you know what I mean? Here's Anthony Bourdain, like here's how we're gonna do this. A great one of the primo examples of this is in Jurassic Park when Mr. DNA is like on screen being like, Dino DNA, and we as an audience, and the characters are making fun of the thing they're watching, but we as an audience are against our will learning about DNA at the same time, you know? So it's like these various screenwriting tricks. So well, John is finding out about the house, how empty it is, what that tells us about Hal, seeing the suit for the first time, seeing the lantern for the first time. Meanwhile, Hal Jordan is dragging naked alien corpses around town. And so there's this like distracting comedy element, you know, physical comedy element that's telling a story about what Hal's doing.
Right. Corpse stone.
That is just sort of like injecting energy into this lore dump that we get of like, and also undercutting, you know, we get this like moment and in the after episode They showed a little clip of the making of the episode where they were like, the director was instructing Aaron Pierre when he's holding the suit up in front of the mirror. He's like, no, really take a beat. This is something you've thought about your whole life.
Picture yourself in that
I
suit.
wrote Mirror of Erised sort of like moment in our notes, right?
Yeah.
And then the way the lantern is shot where the camera just gets all kind of like swooshy and swirly, or the pocket dimension inside of the box. Like all this stuff is like extremely cool, big, important moments. Cut to Hal with,
corpse
stuffing a corpse in and out of a trunk. It's just like, that's such smart storytelling that I really, really admire.
It's hard to pick my favorite part of this episode because it had a lot of scenes I really loved. But I do think that this sequence was when I was like, we're cooking. We're really cooking. Do you think that is why one of the framed Hal with celebs photos that we see that is on the ground but not hung is Hal with the Pope? A little bit of a wink, a little bit of a nod.
The Pope in the pool.
Yeah.
Do you think it's also why the Harry Potter cast?
I mean, it's with Mirror of Erised, it's and also the mentions last. That was funny to think back then to the interrogation scene. It's like they only made 22 of them, and I had to go to every premiere to take photos of them because I'm Hal Jordan, Earth's first Green Lantern.
Something I think Pope Benedict being here is really interesting. We'll talk a little bit later about some like the Green Lantern. DC in general is always this sort of like gods and heroes kind of thing, and Green Lantern specifically in the sort of cosmology of that. But this idea of like revealing supers to Earth, and how you might need to sort of like go make the religious leaders of the world feel comfortable with your presence.
Reminds me a little bit obviously different lens, but reminds me a little bit of the Disclosure Day conversation, right? About how if people found out that we weren't alone in the universe, what role would people's faith have inside of that? We could see in this episode, we could see Hal with the Golden Trio, and then we could see the Pope. Inside the episode, you could see Hal with Obama, and then Hal with Bush.
Yeah. It takes all kinds.
Oh, man.
I think Hal posed with Trump, something we don't have to ask ourselves maybe this early in 2016. Okay. So,
potato with a smile or a frown if I left it upside down. Just great.
So Kyle Chandler says what we already know. He's a lonely character. We see this very empty house, right?
Yeah.
Hal Jordan, historically kind of bad at romance in the comics, right? Carol is someone who's in love with the Green Lantern but has no time for Hal Jordan. One of those classic gambits.
We get to glimpse obviously lawn chair in the living room TV, the same lawn chair that he's sitting with at the motel. So this guy loves a lawn chair that he could put a cold one in. But when we got to see the bedroom, and one of the things Hal says, John is like, when I lived there 8 years, I have a bed. So he has a nightstand, milk crates.
Yeah.
No nightstand on the other side.
No second nightstand. Sad.
Doesn't have a lot of company. It is sad.
Here's what I read this great essay by Ritesh Babu on the website or blog Shelf Dust, perhaps. I just want to cite it. He says, with Hal Jordan specifically, John Broome explored the question that emerged from that 60s hero. At what cost? At what price?
Yeah.
Sure, Hal could save the universe every Tuesday, but he could never get his life right. He was always a mess. The will they, won't they romance of the period and a subversive twist is given a definitive answer after a point as Carol moves on, just when Hal prepares to commit and propose. So
I really like thinking about, you mentioned already today the newsreel, the 60-minute footage that we get of Hal in the pilot, saying, well, when you've lost your parent, like what else is there to fear? This idea that this question of Hal, now that he is Green Lantern, the way that he thinks about relationships, the way that he thinks about the potential risk to people he cares about, the potential cost of losing them, how much of that is something that has been informed and kind of like chipped into the marble or chipped out of the marble of Hal Jordan in his stint as Lantern and Green Lantern, and how much of it is this like formative wound of like, well, you can't mourn someone you never allowed yourself to love,
Are you saying inside of a show that Damon Lindelof worked on, somebody has daddy issues that has impacted their ability to connect with other people?
Christian Shepherd, is that
Did you hear the tinkle of the ice in the glass? Double daddy issues for both John and Hal. Something they could bond over.
No question.
Guys, talk about it. Suit time. This is what costume designer Cynthia Summers said in the post episode. He had many of them, the suits. They're fairly beat up. They're faded because the man himself is faded at this point in time. More crucially for you, perhaps, Mallory Rubin, we do see the suits.
Yeah.
In these pristine sort of garment bags. We see a tuxedo.
Mm-hmm. We do. Yeah, bow tie and all.
When are we going to see Hal Jordan in his tuxedo?
I guess when he gets back out to meeting famous people and going to premieres again, you know?
Okay. We also see what looks like maybe like a really early, there seems to me, not phrase very Mahoney, but doing my best, a sort of like green leotard situation.
I thought it was just a maybe tight sweater, a form-fitting swetter, but I love the idea.
And then there's like there's like
the
the domino mask is also like elsewhere in the thing. So I feel like this is if we're very good,
will we be
perhaps
rewarded?
In 1986?
Oh my God,
we will get to see 60-year-old Kyle Chandler stuffed into a green leotard and a domino mask. I can only hope.
Dare to dream, but also it's the hope that kills you. You know, I mean, that would be, I don't know if I would survive, frankly. I really thought that this stretch, us seeing this through John's eyes, really all of it, was just so smart. The fact that Hal has been here 8 years but barely put any of his own possessions, he doesn't have a lot of things that maybe he's like, I don't need to be surrounded by a lot of, stuff. And I don't need to like have a lot of like merch and shit around me to feel like I have connection in the world. Couldn't be me. He's able to function without that. But there's a note, I think, undeniably of just like, he has not put down roots in this place. Yeah. He has not put down a lot of things that have meaning to him because he's not allowing himself to. That was very sad. The most sort of like lived in space is the greenhouse where Earl is. No question. Earl is thriving. Again, maybe perhaps being deprived of multiple meals, but he has a lush, robust space. I did notice, like the bed looked comfortable. Rumpled. Maybe Hal Jordan, a hot sleeper, because it looked like, so it's like a nice, a top sheet and perhaps like a thin quilt, but not like a big comforter.
Sure.
I'm just thinking about what our nights together would be like. But so to the suit point, you said like the pristine kind of like back from the dry cleaner bags that a couple of them are in and there's the one that's out. What that tells us is basically what we already know because Hal literally said it in the first episode. He's just not wearing them.
Really wear
He's had no reason, no compulsion to take them out of those bags, which is...
It's very interesting to me. I don't know, and maybe comics would tell me this, but I don't know what I mean, the point about a character like Green Lantern, which has existed for decades in the comics, is that the lore can change based on who's writing, right?
Yes,
So I was curious when Hal puts the ring on later in this episode and then takes the sling off.
Right.
I was like, oh, does the ring always have regenerative properties? Sometimes,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like in terms of putting that suit on at the end of the episode, we've seen him fly without the suit.
Right.
Does it give him any kind of protection in space, or is it something he put on so that Sinestro could see him in the suit?
That was
Is this a performance for Sinestro, or is this a practical? I need this so I don't freeze when I fly through various atmospheres or something like that.
And
I would prefer it be that performance.
I think so because it's one of those things where like even if the suit does have that practical utility, he could still just construct something with the ring. True. So that if he didn't want to put the suit on, he wouldn't need it, but he chooses to put it on. So the maybe there's a little bit of being pulled back on the daddy issue front, being pulled back into that younger version of yourself. I'm going to go meet my fallen mentor, and I need to be the hot shot I once was.
Hero,
and
surprised he didn't get out the Just for Men and sort of like go after the grays.
It's funny that you say that because there was something that I thought was different about the styling of his hair. Like it was just more
coiffed.
Yeah, less rumpled and like God, he just looked. Dude, the camera angle, I was like, I need a moment. It's insane. How am I supposed to concentrate on pod prep when Hal Jordan's standing there looking like that? Holy fuck. And on that front, by the way, when John finds the box, finds the what's in the box, finds the box, and then Hal explains, it's a pocket dimension, Junior. Just feel around in there and you'll find it. Incidentally, that's what I'd like to say to Hal Jordan, and I'm going to get one of those in there for you every week. That's my promise to you.
You just want to save the social team time on making the quote cards, and you're like, you guys can just reuse that slide over and over again.
Oh my
God. You're very special to me.
Oh God. And just the physical, to your point too about the ring, like obviously, infamous 2011 film. You're using the ring to generate the suit. This is a physical, tactile, like, there's a thick, they're the big kind of broad shoulder pads, but there's just like, you could wear that into war.
I just
I
love that suit. And I've seen some people who like don't like it or really want John to have a different suit. And certainly like John's suit will be different from Hal's suit. That's the way these things go.
Yeah.
But I think that suit would look great on Aaron Pierre.
And it made sense in the show's universe, the world that this show has built.
Well, it's a very like, I haven't found out if specifically they were going for this, but to me it looks like as close to like a flyboy jacket as they could find. You know what I mean? There's just this sort of like leather, sort of like broad shoulder to it.
I love that. I think you're right. That seems right.
All right. The voice activation is Mogo Doesn't Socialize.
Great stuff.
Which is a comic reference to a Green Lantern, Mogo, who is a planet. Cannot come to the meetings because it's literally a planet.
We love a sentient planet.
But what I think is interesting is that is an Alan Moore story. Mogo Doesn't Socialize. And Alan Moore, obviously near and dear and
Absolutely.
Weird to our hearts. I couldn't find a voice listed in the cast for the box dialogue. Though deep in the closing credits, there's a Spanish language voice actor listed for Caja Dimensional, which is dimensional box. But I was just like, is that a voice I should know? For both the sort of like ring nearly depleted voice, which is the male voice, and then the female voice of the box. The box has a female voice.
Sure does.
Sure does.
Really hope we get to see Hal Jordan spend some time
with the box.
In that box.
Rummaging around the box. Okay.
Reach around and you'll find it.
Anything you want to say about Earl that we haven't already? Okay, here's I asked you, but I just need to interject.
Yeah, please.
Tom King claims this was done practically with puppeteers. He said that at San Diego Comic-Con. In the closing credits, 3 people are credited as Earl puppeteers.
I love this. Yeah.
Jim Shermetz, Victor Broadley, Roderick Khachatorian. That looked so CG to me. I wasn't mad. It didn't look bad, but that did not look like a practical effect to me. So until I see the behind the scenes, I believe that there were puppeteers on set and they like did all this, that, and the other thing. And then I believe they digitally painted over it. Okay. So
you need to learn about the Rocketeers. You need to see the Grogu animatronic or puppeteering before you're convinced. Well, listen, this would make you a good Green Lantern. You are a skeptic. And you're going to go investigate.
I will turn my microphone in.
Don't do that. I need you.
if that is just a puppet.
Lower the stakes.
Okay.
Lower the goddamn stakes. We have podcasts to make.
What I'm really excited about is that there's so many puppets in Labyrinth, which you get to see tonight. I'm really excited for you to find out about it.
I simply can't. Will I look at the puppets with the same reverence that John looks at the suit and the lantern with?
Maybe. What do you want to say about Earl that we haven't already?
Just thought this was wonderful. Thought it was great. And I think it's very humanizing to know this about Hal, that he has Earl Jordan. And also, I did think it was very sweet that John goes from like, what the hell is this? Like, he's disgusted by the meat. He's a vegan, all of it. The spoons are all torn up. But don't eat my bird. Into like the little, like the smirk, the little kind of half smile. And he's just like, fucking Jordan. Like, he learned a lot about Hal, not only with Earl, but by moving through his home. And on the one hand, I'm inclined to say that Hal wouldn't have shown him or told him otherwise. But on the other hand, Hal sent him there. Now we get the other side, the darker underbelly of that later. Yeah, which is like
very racially coded.
Yes. But the fact that there is like this real insight into who this person is, what does he care about, what is he not allowing himself to care about, was just a really rich aspect in this stretch. And I hope that we get a lot of Earl. It certainly sounds from the official pod like we are not done with Earl. And I think that is frankly appropriate and right.
So according to the official pod, Damon named him Earl. We haven't asked Damon yet why Earl. I'm happy to throw my guess out the window, which was it was named after the puppeteer Michael Earl, who puppeteered Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors. It's very Audrey 2 Little Shop of Horrors coded, this particular carnivorous plant. But I always love to honor the puppeteers. That's all. Okay.
It can only be you.
Will Earl eat a person/alien/manhunter before the season is through?
Interesting.
I don't know how much Earl can move.
Does Earl travel?
Because what the best option would be is that Earl comes kind of out of nowhere to save John and or Hal from someone who's attacking him. But does that mean Earl can like hop in his little pot out the green, because if they're fighting in the greenhouse, then we're like just waiting for Earl to like come and tromp someone, right? So it's going to have to happen elsewhere in order for it to feel like a surprise,
Yeah. So maybe Hal will realize this isn't Earl's not going to get his calories. We've got to bring him to Rushville.
Okay.
It did say no vacancies at the motel. Could we build? Also, it's cold motel. There. I don't know. It said that they had HBO at the motel. They got that onto the sign. Yeah.
They got a bunch of Harry Potter mentions and HBO on the sign. Great. Synergy.
So will Earl make it to Rushville, or will we be spending more time at the Jordan Manse? I don't know. Will Earl go back to space? Because that's where he's from, right?
Oh.
Could be that.
Mean green mother from outer space.
No,
Travis wrote in to say, do we think carnivorous plants have toe beans? And if so, what color are Earl's toe beans? I just want to shout out the Bad Babies in Baltimore. There were multiple Vagar/Sunfire toe bean references.
Signs, shirts, and tote bags.
The way you guys make merch based on something we said, and even something we said like kind of recently, is
incredible,
delightful, and wonderful. All right, John and his bird get lantern napped. Where are we going? Where's my fucking bird? John says. First thought. Where's my bird?
Man, he loves that bird, and yet.
Anything you want to say that we haven't said about sort of like this fight?
I just thought this was a great action sequence.
Yeah,
I was quite worried about the bird the whole time, which is obviously something we're supposed to be feeling. Of course, I'm also worried about John. I thought that so what this shows us, you mentioned the, how it heightens the immersion for Aaron Pierre to actually be doing this. Mm-hmm. We get to really stay on him. The fighting inside of the van and then the way that spills out into the street, this was just a really attention-grabbing and compelling action sequence that had the emotion rooted inside of it. It also, in a way that feels true to the intention of the show so far with how the comic-y elements have been deployed, it gave us some of that entwined with the grounded version of the thing. When the pursuers need half a step to reach the top of a car and then lurch forward, you just know. You don't have to stop to think. In the flow of the action, without having to really linger on it, you understand that is going to be an alien or superpowered being of some sort.
John gets like hit by a
sideswiped by a van
in a way that he seems like more fine for a human. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're knocked out cold for a bit, but then fairly pretty much okay after that. I don't know what Anton and his crew, what their like CTE and concussion protocol is right there. You mentioned Hal taking off the sling laser and the fact that sparked you to look into like the
healing
factor of the ring. There's also just how tough do the guys need to front that they can be in any moment, like Hal just being like, well, I'm going to take this sling off and stand up, and you know things I don't, and I'm
performance.
Yeah, sure. Like I'm not going to sit here infirmed in front of you.
On that front, John like running fearlessly into traffic.
Yeah.
So on this idea of fearlessness, this is our listener Rogue. Cool. Shout out Rogue. Is it Indy Neveretti? Who's to say? Wrote in to say, when hearing you guys talk about the quote emotional absolutism that the show is indicating in this first episode, it made me think about the father-son fear training scene. Do you guys think that the father shooting the apple off of John's head actually instills / teaches a lack of fear, or just teaches John to perform a lack of fear so that he can receive physical acts of love from his father? It made me so sad to think
suspect
about.
We'll find out.
Yeah, really sad. James Hawes, EP, inside the episode said, there was an almost religious serenity to John because of his Marine training, which I thought was really interesting. So just like watching him just like, again, run into traffic and just being like focused. He's got the bag, he's got the suit, he's got the lantern, and he's after his bird, and he's going to escape these aliens. He's not going to escape, but like, he got close.
The duffel reaching, going in the other direction just for a few paces, but to grab the duffel was a good bit of shorthand for like, there's a practical, I am in peril and I will fight to survive, but also this is a mission.
Yeah.
The task-oriented nature of the pursuit there.
All right, Kerry and Hal team up. It's your dream come true. What do you want to say about this, her pulling him over and what happens next?
Is this about me not being on the insurance? Hysterical. absolutely hysterical.
You shushed me. You're killing me.
Oh my God.
I was going to tell me you shushed me.
Boy. I'd like to see these two fuck at some point. I don't mind saying it.
Your marriage is unsmooth.
Your marriage is unsmooth. You mentioned the kid caught with a hand in the cookie jar. I've been found out quality to this. This was also a very boyish, we're talking about the who is Hal allowing into his life or not. Mm-hmm. But there is something very authentic here. He has there's a draw. There's a pull. There are some yearning tendrils here, right?
I've seen a lot of theories, which I think are deeply incorrect.
Interesting.
That Hal and Kerry have a history of some kind. I feel like I think it's just based on some lines in episode 1 when she's like, I can't do this again. And what she means is explain why the Lanterns don't have jurisdiction here to John. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I think some people interpreted that as I can't do this with Hal again, who I have a history with. I mean, she has to tell him she's from Gotham.
I don't think they
know each other.
Yeah.
They decided to go to the compound. It goes great. Kerry has to do the talking and Hal grudgingly agrees, but then surprised as soon as they meet Ben. Ailey Ben?
Ailey Ben.
Ailey
Ben.
Ailey Ben.
You're the best. Ailey Ben.
Hal, at the gate, Hal starts yapping.
He does what he wants. He'll say, but just the let me do the talking, just nod, understood. Hal Jordan maybe into being bossed around just for a minute. What do you think?
Yes.
I think so.
Then he says cavalry. He says cavalry. Wow, I can't say that word very well. He says cavalry just in the nick of time. And then cavalry's a lot faster in the movies.
Hysterical.
Is a great punch up in a script. Just really funny.
It's hysterical.
Really, really funny. And Macon Cedar rides up and says shit and yet you linger. Very Gary Dillahunt Deadwood, and yet you linger,
Of course, famously in Deadwood more than once.
Yes. Double Dillahunt in Deadwood.
Double Dillahunt. He's delightful so far in this role. No surprise, obviously. I said last week that the Macon Ranch stretch was the most kind of shared and coded. Toughs ride up on their horses while you're a foot and they're a horse. A horse.
Oh, a foot.
Just wonderful. And Macon, and this is another character now in a different way because he's not a lantern, but we can ask this question. He talks about his reverence for the lanterns. I'm a fan of your work. I'm a fan of your work.
Yeah.
He, at least it seems this way, isn't intimidated for a second by Hal Jordan in this scene. Not a second.
Do you think he knows that the ring is out of juice?
I guess
he has cameras around that saw Hal fall out of the sky.
It's possible that there's some actual, CCTV monitoring. That seems plausible, right? He's got these detectors all over town. Or Hal's question is just what other tech is there?
Yeah, his tech is so advanced that even if Hal did create a green bubble around him or something like that, he'd be like, pfft.
I think that's in play. There's also just the fact that Waylon at the interrogation scene last episode was like, okay, but how much charge do you have left? That Macon, certainly a scholar, student of history, studied the past, would know.
He's read the transcript.
Yeah, that Hal is maybe not powered up, but then also just the fact that he has the backing of this mysterious benefactor that is just so fun for Theory Corner. He has a reason that he doesn't think he needs to be afraid of the lanterns. So that's interesting.
Hal says, oh boy, am I about to be threatened. So good. But my favorite Hal line here was, I don't want to disparage your small little town. Really good. Really, really good. Macon Sr. once again mentions the settlers colonizing the natives. And as we explore these themes of fear and security, because later when Zoe's talking to John in the diner, she mentions this idea of security. It feels safe to be around someone like Macon Sr. or something like that.
Right.
Especially the way that this show is hoping to reflect the America we live in, perhaps especially in 2016 or not. Should we talk about this idea of fear mongering around immigration and what freedoms people are willing to give up in order to feel quote unquote safe?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a bit last week with the conversation that they had when Macon was grilling and the way that he is trying to seek common ground with Hal through that framing, and Hal's
but so Macon Sr. feeling fear around sort of being colonized, if he's thinking galactically colonized, something like that.
Yeah.
And who has put that seed of fear inside of him, but also him repeating that line any chance he gets as part of pushing that agenda for the whole town. You should be afraid of this alien threat, and I, at the Macon Ranch, have special tech, so don't you really feel like you should just let me tell you what to do because I can make you safe if you give your freedom up to me.
Yeah, which is harrowing, of course. And then we have Kerry a couple times in this episode, the thing that Kerry says to Hal about when you do things like this, it just reinforces the idea that he's the real seat of power. And that's obviously something that the show through a couple episodes has trained us to think is bad. And doesn't even need to train us to think is bad because we hear him say things like what you're identifying and you're like, no, right? So there's that. There's the just the question of so when Hal is talking about the technology, right? I've went to a small little town. I don't think I've ever seen technology quite this sophisticated. So there's the question of just what depth of.
He's been to space.
Yeah.
We see him go to a space jail later and he's like, what's all this?
Exactly. So there's a scope and scale to what is happening here that is intriguing. But then another thing that Kerry said that, directly invoking the word insurrection, right? I was going to try to this insurrecting in this town. I think it's very purposeful language on the show's behalf to frame it through that lens of modern day political fear-mongering. No question. No question. Just like there's no question that Hal is a fan of movies because obviously we got the Potter stuff with Waylon last week and then he says here, tell me the truth. Is he even real, the benefactor? Or is this some Kaiser Soze situation? Great stuff from Hal.
Yeah. No deep cuts. These are the hits.
Playing the hits.
Yeah, he likes to
play
the hits.
Busy man, so.
He does do. And again, I'm not inside the writer's room, so I don't know exactly who pitched this particular note. But the idea to call out specifically the Marlboro Man, that feels Lindelof-y to me. But I could be wrong. But this idea that Wayne McLaren, several Marlboro men, I think, died of lung cancer. But specifically Wayne McLaren, when he got diagnosed with lung cancer, went on a campaign of education about the dangers of smoking. You know what I mean? So when he says this thing about signing an NDA and he's like, even the Marlboro Man, told the truth. When push comes to shove, NDA be damned. So I thought that was a really great interaction.
Yeah.
Castle Doctrine, which is something that I learned about this year between Widow's Bay and Cape Fear, it keeps coming up. This idea of stand your ground is one thing, but Castle Doctrine is another. And it's just sort of when he's like, he shot me, and Kerry's like, yeah, you were on his property.
And when in real time in that scene when Hal's like, you can't do that. Can you do that? Yeah, he can do that. Seems unneighborly. Ooh, amazing. Also, on the sniper front, obviously it sets up the exchange with Hal and John later, right? Oh, yeah, it says, we had, a sniper, one of your snipers doing, John knows exactly what it is, exactly what the move is. You're a fan of his work. The fact that, I like the discussion that we just had identifying the possibility that Macon knows the ring could not be activated there. And so then that maybe makes what I'm about to say moot. But it kind of felt to me even if he didn't know that about the ring, he felt that he had the edge and they kind of do get the jump on Hal. The timing, Hal couldn't even pretend to, he gets half the sentence out. He couldn't even finish the cosplay theater of I'm going to just make a shield and block this shot before they call his bluff. Yeah. Pierced cold. So I don't know. Macon's level, the assured way in which Macon navigated that encounter was very, very telling.
All right. Of Manhunters and Red Lanterns? ?
Intriguing.
Okay. I already mentioned sort of how well I thought this scene was executed in terms of the lore dump with all of the distractions. There's the device, there's the bird, but there's also the fun, though I think not as funny as I think the show thinks it is, device of Anton's slippery grasp with the English language.
That didn't land super well for me in this scene either, but mostly because I think of not as a concept that isn't working, but because I see human isn't your first language.
Yeah.
I liked that and I like the idea of this, but I'm just kind of I don't know, proximity actually does make sense in that context.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It wasn't quite working for me.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to see if it works better in other episodes. This is where John finds out how impressive the bird creation is.
Yes.
And this will drive a wedge between John and Hal. This is the almost the angriest. We see John at Hal being like, surely you would have given me at least a hoorah. You know what I mean? Like his absolute boiling resentment at Hal not giving him his flowers when he deserves it or whatever for a job well done.
Yes.
Was that something that Anton like intentionally planted to drive a wedge, or was he just sort of like, because he was asking questions, I feel like he didn't know, but like,
yes,
was this an intentional wedge driven or just sort of like, I'm just asking questions?
Right. Because he initially is like, how does Hal continue to project it from such a great distance? He's not projecting it. I am. You're not wearing a ring. Yeah. The shock of it. Yeah, it's interesting.
Manhunter exposition. You think the Green Lanterns came first?
Really don't know.
Synthetic and take the form of any species and embed undetected. Uh-oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
He says, Anton says, we don't know where the Manhunters came from. Comic readers do. We'll talk about this a little bit more in the comic section. We sort of debated whether or not we should talk about this here, but we were like, listen.
Out of an abundance of caution.
The characters don't know, so we feel like maybe we shouldn't talk about it.
Do you want to do leading Manhunter theories here, given what Anton shares, or later?
Do you want to do it here?
I mean, it just feels like everyone in the Macon family is the leading contender at this point, right? And the show is making Macon proper such an obvious candidate, like with the Soze situation.
We got so many emails about Zoe that seems to be the number one guess.
Yeah,
from
I
listeners.
think most people watching the show were like, Macon's too obvious.
Yeah.
Even Kerry is
also think
too obvious.
I think there are a number of times, like if the benefactor and the Manhunter are the same person,
right.
He was used for benefactor and he was used for Manhunter in a way that makes me feel like that's a misdirect off of a female character. So I would take Sheriff Kerry.
Yeah, sure.
But Zoe seems to be the number one. And the way that Zoe shows up at the coffee shop and is like, oh, small town, bound to happen.
Small town.
Right?
Want to go back to the truck? I think Billy, also a contender, and young Noah.
Oh, yeah.
Like the whole family.
Really fun.
The whole everybody in that family unit.
Kid.
Well, and what you were identifying last week about, like, what exactly are the relationships between these people? Like, how did Kerry and Billy become married? Like,
I know the answer to this. Can a Manhunter make another Manhunter? Yes. So, like, are Billy and Noah?
I think so.
Like, made, you know?
And if so, will the Manhunters get an endorsement deal with Aviator Nation?
That's a great question. You're always asking the right question.
Could be the high school football coach. Could be the judge. It's got to be someone we've met already. It just has to
but I
be.
just feel like the judge and the high school football
too
coach
minor so far.
Yeah. We would need a little bit more.
Militia Ben.
Oh, Ben. Ailey Ben.
Could be Ben. Ailey Ben.
All right.
Oh, God.
Our listener Jordan says, we'll address this a little bit more in Comic Reader Corner, but Jordan says, if anyone wants to know a bit more about Manhunters, the 4th and 5th episodes of Justice League cover it pretty well. And if someone wants to know more about Lanterns and Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, the animated series, is one of the greatest one-season shows of all time, 26 episodes of pure will, power, and heart. So a nice endorsement from Jordan. No free ads, but an ad from Jordan for these shows. Okay. We already mentioned that have you ever been deceived by someone you love, and John indicating he has, and I'm just excited to find out about that.
Just the quiet, not that he would go into a long detailed story with his captor, but like, just there's a heaviness behind the quiet there. Can't wait to learn more.
Anton is a show original character, but there is a character in the comics. I've seen it pronounced a couple different ways. I would pronounce it Atrocitus.
Hell yeah.
That's what I would say. I've seen Atrocitus, but I think it's Atrocitus. Atrocity.
Can that be my new nickname?
Atrocitus? Mallory Atrocitus Rubin?
Yeah.
Instead of saying calamity, should I start saying atrocity?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's give it a try, see how it feels. A horse.
In the comics, Atrocitus, who after the decimation of his people by Manhunters, forms the Red Lantern
Dun, dun,
Corps.
dun.
Lanterns, Red Lantern Corps. Something to think about. Okay.
I'm intrigued.
John Stewart gets...
Well, also, like, what color was you're about to talk about the...
It was orange.
Was it orange? Was it yellow?
It could have been yellow and red together to make orange, but it was orangey.
A little fear, a little anger.
Yeah, a little fear, a little anger.
It did look orange, but it is fun because it definitely looked orange, but it's fun because it's lanterns to be like, is it actually yellow? Is it actually red? It was orange.
John Stewart gets Bix cleaned.
I wrote down Bix, of course, and then also now, because it's Odyssey summer, wrote down Odysseus, the siren song. We don't hear it. We don't see it. We are just convey. We are. It is the torment of what is happening is conveyed on the face. It's for sure Bix.
Bixier in terms of like, come enjoy this genocide in your ears.
It's gonna make every orifice on your face leak because it's just
he's drooling. His eyes are rolled back. He looks devastated. This
deeply
is, of course,
troubling.
The most broken we've seen. The very stalwart John Stewart.
And what will the lasting impact of this experience be? Because there's the practical, like you've got the 48 hours, you're looking for the Manhunter, learning about the Manhunters, but what is now literally embedded into his brain, someone else's trauma that John is carrying. Yeah, the stamp, imprint language.
But are there any sort of like Manchurian candidate, like I can activate you sort of thing?
I mean, it's scary to think about. They drilled something into his brain, right? Yeah. So like that feels like something we should consider. The effects of our collective loss will remain with you for some time. Not ideal.
So fun fact, Manhunters can be killed as humans in their human form. Good to know. This prompted our listener Nita to write in and say, because they made a big deal about the vulnerability of the Manhunter while in human form, as well as the Manhunter's ability to be anyone, this makes me wonder if the Hal Jordan with the bullet in his head at the end of Pilot is going to turn out to be the Manhunter, having taken Hal's form.
And then is Hal just like on vacation with Earl?
He's still in that rumpled bed waiting for you, with Mallory.
Me. That's where Hal is. We're together.
Waiting
There's
for
a second nightstand now.
I was about to say, you're like...
It's full of all sorts of things, folks.
I would say aim high. If you're going to start in this relationship with Hal, please demand your own stacked milk crates.
We need some drawers.
Yeah, for all your devices.
We need some drawers in our nightstands.
Sheriff
Kerry. Or maybe we don't. If he still has the ring. What can't a lantern make?
Wow.
The mind is racing.
Something for Sheriff Kerry to think about. Sheriff Kerry's very wary. Hal wakes up and Kerry wastes very little time. What's with Sinestro?
Let me say this about you. Week over week, you've gone from I don't like Sheriff Kerry to really leaning in the section headers.
It's helping me. I really don't like it, so I'm just trying to like accept it.
Oh, man.
What's with Sinestro?
Yeah.
Hal is immediately hackles up about this, but apparently he's so Sinestro preoccupied. He was saying his name in his sleep. Can Sinestro invade his mind while he's dreaming? Something to think about. I don't know.
I like that would be upsetting. I like the idea that Hal, who is Mr. Once you've lost a parent, there's nothing to fear.
I don't need anyone.
Give him a little, shoot him in the shoulder, give him a little anesthesia. Maybe those details led to this. Maybe it's just give him a few hours of sleep.
It's calling out your name. Mallory.
Yes, Hal. The idea that the fears surface in the night, right? That he is not able to fend off, to keep at bay, to suppress and repress these horrible things, that he actually shouts them out when he doesn't have that suppressing element of consciousness in a waking state.
You know what I really wish? They had one of those classic, I forget, I feel like I'm quoting something directly, but if she had been like, do you usually talk in his sleep? And he would have been like, it's been a while since anyone's been in a position to tell me, one of those moments.
That would have been wonderful. Actually, though, it did make me think like, oh, maybe someone hasn't told him that since whatever happened with Sinestro, right? Like he hasn't fallen asleep in front of anyone.
He doesn't do sleepovers.
Yeah, he's a fucking go guy.
No, like not fucking go. Come here. Fuck, get out. Sheriff Kerry pulls up the DC fandom wiki for a sprightly bit of exposition. She says, Sinestro, he was a lantern, attempted a coup, killed one of the bosses. You were the one who took him down. And Hal says, I don't talk about that. Again, from a screenwriting point of view, a screenwriting exposition point of view, this makes us want to know. This is something that Aaron Sorkin does a lot, which is he hides exposition inside of conflict. People are like at odds with each other about something, and so they're sort of like yelling information at each other in a way that helps us learn about it. And so for her to be like, tell me about Sinestro, he's like, no, you don't get to have this information. Then she's like, too bad I know how to read the internet. Here's the information. Then we're eager to hear the information that Hal wants to keep hidden, which I think is really fun.
And also to like, the thing we were discussing earlier about the public life, being in the public eye, this idea that this thing that Hal doesn't want to have to acknowledge and face and think about, let alone discuss with a relative stranger who he definitely wants to fuck. But like all she has to do is Google it once and there it is. The affairs of his life, that maybe his version of like, the have you been deceived by someone you love? Yeah, this deep wound is something that everybody else is just like a tweet away from learning about, even though he wants to keep it private. It's a very vulnerable position to be in.
Very tough. All right. You already mentioned Thomas William Osborne, something I had to Google, but I did Google it.
I really love that you're going with Thomas William. Great stuff. One
is
of the
that
best.
wrong?
No, it's just Tom Osborne.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but he
one of the best coaches in college football history. I wonder how many Nebraska Cornhuskers football nuggets will be sprinkled in here.
He's also
gonna get some Eric Crouch,
a congressman, right?
Dominican Sue. Yeah, representative. Yeah.
Oh, rep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We already talked about this idea that Kerry was like, you're undermining my authority. He seems like genuinely actually genuinely contrite about it. Uncharacteristically.
Different version of, but like we were saying, it's important to show us he's competent.
Yeah.
It's important. Hal's a dick, but he can't be a dick.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference. He has to actually feel like there has to be a real genuine recognition and acknowledgement that that's a shitty way to make her feel. And that him coming in with his bravado and undermining everything she's worked years to establish is kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Will he continue to behave that way? I don't know. We'll find out. But like the fact that in real time he's like, that's not cool. You're right. I'm sorry. Important.
Yeah. I wouldn't bank on him behaving that way all the time, but sometimes he'll have his moments. He's the only patient there. She says she's from Gotham. Moved there on a whim. He says sounds like a story.
Yes.
So that's a Gotham accent that she's doing? Is that what that is?
It's not. It's not. It's not.
Her last name is Kane.
Mm-hmm.
There are famous Kanes from Gotham, Kate Kane, something like that. We also heard her on the phone last week say hi to Babs for me.
That's right.
So was she speaking to
That'd be great.
Jim Gordon?
That would be great. Love that.
Where are all the patients? Half the equipment looks like it was just taken out of the crate. What goes on here? We've read this sci-fi novel before. There's a couple versions of this sci-fi novel. Childhood's End is one that I was thinking about. Arthur C. Clarke.
Sure.
But yeah, aliens come and everything's great. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody ages.
Right.
Nobody whatever. Everyone's healthy. At what cost? At what price? For what reason?
And again, this scene,
no free lunch.
This later scene was part of why then thinking back to that town hall meeting, I'm like, well, what is everyone just like, this is life and they have no level of awareness and only the Makins have some level of awareness and everyone else is just like, get the lanterns out of here so they stop like kind of interfering with the daily flow of our life? Or are people in Rushville like, we don't need to go to the hospital apparently? No one, the stuff is in plastic wrap.
They're not asking questions because it doesn't like serve them to ask questions.
Yeah, right. And then, frankly, like last episode of this show, when John was assessing the scene at the shooting, one of the things he said was like, and it's Nebraska, so like everyone's carrying. So then when Kerry in this sequence with Hal is like, well, they're all smart enough not to get shot. And obviously there's just, some ribbing going on there, but it's kind of like, no,
right.
Actually, that's not this town and the flow of life in this town. So that's all interesting. I thought while Hal, before he was signing out, and there was no one else on the sign out sheet, when he was still in bed, the little like they both have a version of the "Can I ask you something?" right? And he's got it does make a guy wonder. She spins it back with it does make a girl wonder. Delightful flirting, just wonderful stuff. But, why did you fight me on jurisdiction if you knew they were aliens? Mm-hmm. There's that. This is when she provides that I didn't want Billy's dad insurrecting the shit out of everyone and getting them all paranoid about invasion. But, like, in order to be able to do that, what level of paranoia has already been fostered, to your point from earlier? It makes me, because we're on Manhunter watch now, so it's like, on the Theory Corner front, what is the Manhunter's plan? To use William Macon to run the militia as defense? But also rally the troops of the town to fend off any aliens who are seeking to find the Manhunter?
Is it just hiding? Or is there like a plotting? Is it just concealment, or is there like defense,
are you defense,
or is it a building an offense?
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's something you say in football.
Look at you.
Okay.
Look at you.
Trust is running very thin in Rushville, Nebraska, which I wrote before I knew what the title of this episode was.
There's hail, but very little trust.
Hail in.
There's hail in. And it sounds just like alien.
Okay. John just happens to run into Zoe when he gets back into town. She clarifies that she's not in an open marriage.
Wait, did she clarify that? Was that your...
She says, you've met my husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he seems traditional.
Oh, but then she's like, and when I need a break, I go take it. So that made me think it is an open marriage and that they have an understanding that like she's like, I do love my husband.
That makes more sense.
And I have a life, but like we have an understanding that when I want to go fuck other people, I will.
Okay, so what she says, he says, I mean, is your relationship unconventional? And she says, you've met my husband, right? And he says, mm-hmm. And she says, mm-hmm, yeah, what do you think? And he says, respectfully, I think he's pretty fucking weird. Yeah, that he is deeply so. Yeah, I think he's pretty fucking weird, but you're not. And so, yes, to your point, I don't know. Garrett Dillahunt is just playing such a like Macon senior of the Macon Ranch and I make my ribs. And like, what about that guy reads as I'm in an open marriage with my wife?
The fact that he knows she's fucking other people.
But like,
and
is he okay with it or does he just have to do what she wants to do because she gets to do what she wants to do?
I think it seems to me that their understanding is that she can have sex with other people. That doesn't mean he likes that or is happy about it, right?
I think that's fair. And I think that makes sense. But I also think have you met my husband feels real like he's a traditional Marlboro Man kind of guy.
No question.
Okay. She tries to bond with John as one of just a few non-white people in Rushville, right? Yes. White men with money, they can do whatever the fuck they want, play cowboy, build castles. She says she likes the security that he can provide.
I also like that he could have brought some blonde bimbo from Texas to be his arm candy, but he wanted me.
Yeah.
No, I'm with my husband because I love him. I know he loves me. Hey, how's your white man?
How's your white man?
Incredible.
Really good stuff.
Incredible.
He sent me to fetch his things. Again, that sort of racially coded language here.
Man.
And then you already mentioned this. You have to ask a question. You already know the answer. That to me feels like a deliberate wedge driven between John and Hal.
Yes.
So he drives John back to the motel where Hal is wearing a sling he won't need in just a second. And he just says, nope, don't, to fend off any comments about Zoe. Though he says your girlfriend, you know what I mean? Like he finds his way to make his comments.
Your girlfriend's husband.
Yeah, but I just like that he says, nope, don't, like.
I don't hear it.
Let's not even start here. Let's talk about the code.
Okay.
Powers of the ring. He mutters. He races through and mutters the code. So as a follow-up to our conversation last week about what Wailing the Alien, reciting the code, why he got so agitated about it.
Yes.
How does the way he recites the code here inform your interpretation of that?
I think just like the discussion we had last week, it still feels kind of open to interpretation. I think I have my read on it, but I'm like willing and waiting to see exactly where it goes. I think it felt very interesting that it's immediately so John tosses Hal the duffel. The lantern's in there, but Hal discovers the suit and he's like, I told you not to bring this. And then John says, yeah, well, maybe I couldn't bring myself to disrespect it. Right on the heels of that, immediately on the heels of that, Hal has to push the ring into the lantern to power up. And it felt to me like the speed with which he did it, right, hurrying through this kind of holy ritual, this sacred thing.
Yada, 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 yada.
Yeah. The whispered, you could interpret it as him being almost like, Mr. Now I'm in the era of like cowboy boots and jeans and I don't need to wear the tie because I'm not trying to impress anyone. Almost like embarrassed by it a little bit by having to do it in front of someone, or as it being still despite his evolving over time and altered relationship with what it means to be a lantern. So John saying that thing about the suit is right before it. The thing that's right after this is him going to see Sinestro. So those are like the bookends, the sandwich of this moment, complicated relationship to, well, who trained him to be a lantern? What happened to that person, right? So like obviously just massive lanterns lore in terms of Sinestro and their relationship.
Yeah.
I think there's this like, this is still a holy thing, but I have a complicated relationship to it. And also it's not something that it's private. It's a private thing, my relationship to this oath.
Yeah. I don't know. I can see that. I really can. I agree with you. I can see it both ways. I think I'm leaning for some reason in like it he's embarrassed that he has to say it because he doesn't really believe it anymore, but it's a means to an end, and it gets the juice in the ring that he needs. You know what I mean?
And then the question is, will his journey be rediscovering
the meaning of that?
Yeah, like a deeper connection to that if this is the place that he is, or no. Like, is the journey just a further descent into like not feeling connected to that oath anymore? And then if the oath is something that you feel a distance from, that wedge, but it's necessary constantly for you to say it, for you to think about it, for you to be reminded of not only what it's supposed to represent and mean, but maybe what it did actually once mean to you, Hal Jordan, and you don't feel it anymore, then that's a kind of gnarly space to be in. So I think that to me, actually, these are not either ors. They're the same, because it's like, if it was a sacred, holy thing and now it isn't, or that has been like compromised and befouled in some way, wouldn't the fact that you once felt that way about it make that an even more dangerous and difficult place to be and like space to inhabit?
Interesting. I mean, we've talked about a lot of this already in terms of their back and forth. Did the Guardians hide a Manhunter in Nebraska? Abensor must have brought him here and the Manhunter killed him. Is that what happened?
So what Anton said was the Lantern took the monster into his custody and guaranteed he'd be executed. Why? I do not know. So that's where Hal goes. Is it that? Is this the connection?
But he's just like, Hal's just so certain what happened.
Because he's been, as we understand it from the premiere, spending decades trying to figure out, why did Abensor crash here in the first place? Like, why here when we're this backwater that the Lantern Corps and the Guardians, we weren't on the map. We weren't on the plan.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe that possibility helps fill in a blank that he's been trying to fill in.
I don't mind it as a possibility, as a theory. I feel like he says it with, like, more certainty than I like to hold my theories.
I agree. And then the question is, like, well, okay, if that's not that, was Sinestro involved in some way? Was Abensor, did he crash on Earth because he was pursuing whoever took? Maybe it wasn't him, but he was after whoever did this thing.
So something that Chris Mundy said on the official podcast, using a phrase I learned from you, which is coaching tree, was I feel like I can say this outside the spoiler section, is that Abensor trains Sinestro. Sinestro trains Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan trains John Stewart. So that's the sort of like mentor-mentee chain that has existed over time.
Yes.
When Hal looks so fearful about John reporting the Manhunter to the Guardians, that's how I chose to interpret that. Like, have you told the Guardians about this, right? That seemed to me to be another fear response. I don't know. I'm just thinking about John Broome writing Hal Jordan in the 1960s while also trying to unionize, and how he felt like a threat to the authority. Like that comic creator's relationship with authority at DC, and how he was this sort of like, to a certain degree, persona non grata rabble-rouser inside of this authoritative system that he worked inside of. And I'm just sort of like, and also tried to unionize, tried to get the other like writers and artists along with him, and then like they got offered like a smidge more money and abandoned him. And so just sort of like Hal's relationship with the Guardians, Hal's relationship with the other Lanterns, which is something you raised last week, just sort of like, where is this guy in the larger ecosystem of the Guardians and Lanterns?
Well, and again, I think it's like, it's interesting through the lens of Hal's relationship to the Guardians and theirs to him, but also in terms of what Hal is worried about John's relationship to the Guardians being, because that's a threat.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's all present there.
I agree. All right. Enter Sinestro.
Yes.
Hal puts a suit on, flies up into space. Again, looks a lot better in the darkest night. Space prison, Sinestro. All these funky camera angles as he walks through here. Hannibal Lecter vibes, Palpatine Maul vibes. David Lindelof said in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Loki vibes, et cetera, et cetera. Sinestro is Lucifer. Okay, so this is from that Shelf Dust post by Ritesh Babu, talking about the religiosity of the Lantern dynamic. He says, Oa, which is where Oa is in essence heaven, while the Guardians are the gods, with the Green Lanterns being the angels. Sinestro, the eternal traitor, is of course the devil, or a Miltonian Lucifer.
Yeah.
Cast off in punishment to, you guessed it, Queeword of the antimatter universe, aka hell. It's why the Green Lantern ring in this era is a literal wishing ring. It can do anything. It can create life, rewrite minds, manifest storms of steel spheres. You name it, it can do it. The imagination was the limit. Green Lantern was a hero blessed with divine cosmic power, which is also why his lamp was frequently referred to as the mystic lamp. The whole enterprise was magical in nature, a supernatural phenomenon swimming in religious subtext, which is muy Lindelofy
For sure.
At the end of the day here. Hal in the comics invokes the name of the Guardians as the way that people invoke the name of God or Jesus. He'll say, Great Guardians, sort of like as this exclamation. But I was thinking about all of that. Miltonian Lucifer, great. Loki, great. We love it. Hannibal Lecter, they've all sort of referenced him as a Hannibal Lecter comp.
Where's Miggs?
Ben Linus.
Oh, I mean.
Ben Linus in Lost. And the way in which
literal our favorite,
the way in which John Locke will come back to him, for answers, and the way that Ben has this resentment towards Jacob and the guardians of the island, and the way in which Ben is always manipulating and working every angle and finding every weakness and just sort of exploiting it.
Yeah,
and so just the way that Michael Emerson as Ben Linus, one of the greatest characters of all time in television, asks questions and just plants seeds of doubt and fear inside, and just wriggles his way out of captivity and prison constantly on that show.
Yeah.
So to think about Sinestro here, if one still existed, it would be the second greatest threat that existed. Why don't you tell me about Jon Stewart?
Just an amazing end note for the episode. Incredible.
I'm so excited for this character, this depiction of this character, this archetype in general, and what he can do to our guy, Hal Jordan, Hal Jordan is to a certain degree kind of an antagonist in this show to our hero, Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
So to give our antagonist a deeper antagonist, a charming, charismatic one at that, is incredibly exciting storytelling.
I also think that the folks over at Ahsoka, a show that we hope will be good in season 2, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Could learn something about face paint from this.
The pink shade is immaculate.
Looked great.
Looked great. Kyle Chandler to Entertainment Weekly. The more and more we did it, I found myself feeling more respect, that mentor-student thing, because he gave me what I have, like him or not. There was almost like a father figure sitting in front of me. Daddy issues. You love to see it. All right. Anything else you want to say about this?
I don't think so.
Human Condition.
I can't wait.
Pretty Sick is the song that closes out here.
Oh, yeah. That was amazing. Sick needle drop at the end. No, this made me... I'm glad this is a weekly show and not a binge, to be clear. But it did make me oh my
god,
for the next one. And then the tease for episode 3 was just so good. So I'm hyped, man. I'm hyped.
So between Anton, Zoe, and Sinestro, I don't think I'm missing anyone, but maybe I am.
On the Wedge front.
Wedge Watch.
What?
Wedge Watch 2026.
Wedge Watch.
And who do I think will be best at it? Sinestro.
If we go back to last week, the phone call between John and his dad.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So there's that as well.
John Sr. Okay.
Yep.
All right, juniors and seniors. All right. What's happening next is something we're calling Rapid Fire Theory and Comics Spoiler Corner.
Yes.
So...
And to be clear, not comics that we know are going to have a direct bearing on the future of this season.
These are actually just a bunch of emails we got from listeners that I wanted to read, and I just did not want to injure anyone who didn't want to listen to it. So is that enough warning for you to leave if you don't want to hear it? Bye. All right. Kara wrote this before we met Anton in this episode, right? Okay. But Kara said, I have a strong suspicion that the war of, quote, vengeance the alien Hal interrogates mentions refers to the Red Lantern Corps. Mm-hmm. The show is entitled Green Lanterns, but simply Lanterns. If Red Lanterns are the aliens shooting each other at the high school football game, this ties to the Manhunter storyline teased in the weeks to come. This explains how and why a random alien was able to bait Jordan, a guy who started a bar brawl without a hint of agitation and who just ratified a peace treaty, into executing a stereotypical police procedural body slam into the two-way mirror, infected with rage. This also explains the sneering recitation of the Green Lantern Oath in that moment. The Red Lanterns exist following a genocide in Sector 666 perpetrated by Manhunters who were created by Guardians. A Red Lantern, that's the other fact, Manhunters made by the Guardians.
Yes.
A Red Lantern exists to oppose the Guardians, and knowledge of the Guardians' original sin might be the thing that making Hal Jordan the cynical, jaded Green Lantern we meet in 2016.
I mean, maybe. This feels completely possible.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that Anton and his crew are Red Lanterns.
Yeah.
In the weeks ahead, we have seen red light sort of special effects stuff. So I definitely think we're getting Red Lantern stuff this season. Are we going to get Yellow Lantern stuff this season? Maybe.
It could be.
Or finale sort of thing or something like that.
And then maybe that's like a season 2 focus.
Right.
Yeah. I like it.
I liked it too. Okay. Matt wrote in to say DC Comics crossover event called Millennium, Manhunters, sentient space robots that used to work for the Guardians, and that the Guardians found unfit and replaced with the Lanterns start activating sleeper agents on Earth. Some of them wind up being close friends of key heroes, and some of them had been on Earth for a very long time. In Batman number 415, for example, Batman discovers his friend Commissioner Gordon has been replaced by a manhunter when he decides to fight him and comically hurts himself trying to kick and punch a robot. Good times. The idea of manhunters infiltrating Earth has a long history. They hate the Guardians for replacing them, hate the Lanterns as their replacements, and are skilled at blending in physically, but often lack an ability to mimic human context and emotion. Classic robot problems. Great email from Matt.
Incredible stuff.
So, could there be other hidden manhunters?
Right. Everybody's talking about this one. This one.
Right.
But what if there are more? What if, God. Jeez.
We don't have a lot of other characters.
I was going to say, I was quickly trying to think of
like,
a single other person we met who we hadn't already
dad.
theorized about. Right. Yeah. And we could,
John Sr.
Let's go back and watch that 60 Minutes footage again.
Okay. Something to think about. All right. Brandon.
Yes.
This is the parallax theory that I was reluctant to bring up in a non-spoiler setting. Okay. Yeah. Something that makes Hal Jordan unique in comics canon, I don't think it makes him unique, but distinctive in comics canon, is that he's one of the only A-list superheroes who has been a supervillain. In the Emerald Twilight arc, Hal's hometown, Coast City, and all of its residents have been wiped out in a bombing. Crazed with grief, Hal used the ring to recreate Coast City, WandaVision style, and all of its residents. The Guardians of the Universe reprimand him for it, as Lanterns are apparently forbidden from using the power of the rings for personal gain. Like putting money in a jukebox, perhaps. I don't know. And enraged Hal takes off for the Guardians' planet Oa, intending to drain the main power battery so he can bring the Coast City back for good. Various Lanterns try to stop him along the way. Hal defeats each one, takes their ring, leaving them for dead. Eventually, he kills Sinestro and even his close friends Kilowog and enters the power battery to take his power. When he emerges, he's the villain Parallax.
Right.
The idea of TV Hal going dark on backing up his consciousness, maybe in order to hide something from his bosses, made me think of this arc. I'm also a huge Tom King fan. And one thing King has explored in most of his major stories, Omega Man, Mr. Miracle, Strange Adventures, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Superman Up in the Sky, even Batman, is a character dealing with sustained trauma, usually via devastating loss or being witness to or participating in some horrific event, war, genocide, torture, etc. The idea of Hal going through a massive traumatic loss and coming out broken seems right up King's alley. Just a thought.
Yeah.
The first episode made a big deal of Hal proclaiming that the death of his father was the worst thing that could ever happen. So after experiencing it, he was left without fear. Part of Hal's recreation of Coast City was bringing back his long-dead father, compounding his traumas. And Parallax, in Lanterns lore, eventually, and this is where I think we're headed, Parallax in Lanterns lore eventually was retconned to be sort of a manifestation of fear, a demon that possessed Hal in his weakness and made him break bad. Could be some interesting stuff in there to mine as far as repressing and denying fear and the ways it can come out anyway.
Yeah.
So this idea of Parallax as a demon, almost like the Yellow King in Legion, just sort of like this thing that can live inside of and infect a hero. And so when we watch Kyle Chandler's performance inside of this episode and other episodes and see those flashes of like fear on his face that he like tries to suppress or master or whatever it is, like, is that the demon that is already inside of him growing and taking greater control of him? Or
is he just so ripe for that?
Vulnerable for infection.
Yeah. So here's the question, pacing wise. What do you think is more likely if this is the intention to go in this direction, which would be, quite interesting to watch?
Yeah.
Is that season 2? Does that happen inside of season 1?
Hal Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would rather it be a season 2 because that means we get Kyle Chandler for more.
Yeah, same. Sue us!
Yeah, because it's not a long season.
It's not. We only have 6 episodes left already.
Yeah.
This was definitely and obviously after episode 2, there's a lot of, okay, who's the Manhunter? Let's go through the contenders theorizing. It felt like the biggest after episode 1 theory on the internet.
The parallax.
Yes.
Yeah. And I wanted to put it in the spoilers. We were sort of discussing where to put it. And I kind of wanted to put it in the spoiler section just so that people who don't want to know that Hal does break bad.
Yeah. That's
don't have
even
to know
possible
that.
Here. Yeah.
Okay. So all of that is interesting to me. Last but not least, Jean-Michel wrote in and said, in terms of whether or not Hal is actually dead.
Yeah.
Oh, to go back. Okay, this is what I wanted to say before this. In terms of us asking in episode 1, what happened to turn 2006 Hal Jordan into 2016 Hal Jordan in terms of the hologram versus the Hal we meet in 2016.
Yeah.
Do we think the Sinestro sort of attempted coup happens between 2006 and 2016?
Yes.
And that is what
I think
broke his heart and turned him into who he is?
I think so. I'm still interested in the fact that Hologram is not wearing the lantern suit and had already shed the I need to wear the tie, but he wasn't quite in this that was a shiny leather jacket. It is a little different from the the worker jacket that he's in here, the utility jacket. So, but yes, it feels to me like something. It feels to me like maybe something about Sinestro's training and mentorship had changed something for Hal, right? Other events, whatever the case may be, various things in his life, lost loves, etc. And then the seismic Sinestro fall has happened more recently.
He had to be the one to put his dad in jail. His space dad in jail.
Even
his space dad who Hal Jordan, someone who lost his real dad and was just susceptible to someone stepping in and being I'm your daddy now. I'm your pink daddy now or whatever. And then he has to put pink space daddy in jail.
Yeah. And then every time he wants to go visit him, he has to voice activate the clearance so that everyone knows he's there to do this thing.
Yeah.
That felt purposeful too in that scene.
And if Space Daddy is hey, the Guardians, should they be in charge?
Right.
Are they right?
Just asking questions.
Is Jacob right?
Does Sinestro had some points?
Does God
Let's get the Thanos was right mug, but for Sinestro.
I mean, again, this is the there are multiple creatives in the room here, but the constant Damon Lindelof drum that he bangs across Lost, Prometheus, even Leftovers, Watchmen. Yeah. This is sort of is God out there? Does he care? Is he mad? Is he my dad? All of these questions are constantly here. So if the Guardians and to put this here in the spoiler section, which I don't know, whatever, but Laura Linney is a Guardian in the episode 3 preview, right? So space mommy, mommy issues enter the chat. But if and she's doing this very sort of 1950s Donna Reed kind of as a symbol of saccharine coded authority is really interesting to me. But if it's space dad versus space mom and who's right, and you put space dad in jail, but you don't trust space mom anymore,
complicated
family.
Would you say the conflict in the human heart is the only thing worth
making
about?
TV about? Maybe
it's the only thing worth making HBO Sunday Night TV about. This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's a lot of possibilities here. Anyway, this is Lanterns season 1, episode 2.
I'm sad we're already down to just 6 episodes remaining. Sheesh. No, I think we did it.
I'm really excited to think about Ben Linus always. Okay.
Oh my God. Who will say what about you to Sinestro?
What about you?
Oh, God.
It's never been easy. Okay. Thank you to Carlos Chiriboga, Scott Lee, Jacob Cornett, Arjuna Ramgopowell, Jomi Adeniran, everyone, everywhere, all at once. The entire city of Baltimore.
That's right.
And to
Goes.
Our favorite hometown hero, Mallory Rubin.
Thank you to Joanna for coming home with me.
The pride of Baltimore. the pride of the Orioles, Mallory Rubin. I can make baseball movie references.
Oh, my God.
We'll see you for Oppenheimer.
That's right, which we are recording at the crack of dawn tomorrow with another live event in between, but you will get to consume in like 2.5 days, I think.
It'll be great.
Sure,
We're doing it. We're doing it. We'll see you soon. Bye.